Hello, welcome to Jason the Old Millennial. Welcome to another live stream. It's kind of a welcome back for me, coming back from vacation. I haven't been on a live stream or done any videos for a while, so it's nice to be back and collaborating again and talking about music again. This time we're doing top 50 or 50 essential albums of the 1980s. We covered the 60s, the 70s. Now we're on to the 1980s decade. And with me, I got, of course, three usual guests here. First off, my name's Jason. You can call me Al. I got Bryer, who's hot for teacher. I got Garrett, King of Pain.
There's a
I've
little
got
black spot on the cloud.
I got Nick, Mr. Demolition Man. Uh, Hopefully you got those references. That was my attempt at 80s references.
Yeah, that was really good, Al. Good job.
Yeah.
Good job, Al.
It was funny the last time you made references to albums you thought you got the Deja Vu one right, but then the other two, like Garrett and Bryer, you guessed that their first choice, and then they ended up going with a completely different album.
Hey, he's Al. He's hot for teacher. I'm the King of Pain. He's the Demolition Man. But hey, everybody wants to rule the world.
There you go.
There you go.
All right. Yeah, interesting. We're getting to the 1980s. This is the first decade where one of us was born, which was me. I was actually born in the 80s. So finally we get to a decade where one of us was alive. Though I was a little kid, so I didn't listen to any 80s music when I was in the 80s. It wasn't until the 90s that I must have heard some music on the radio dating back to the 80s anyways. And so everybody else here, obviously, all listen to it retroactively back to the 80s. But yeah, this is an interesting decade because for me, it's a decade that I'm not as familiar with as the 60s or 70s. So I had to do a lot of homework on this one. So I'm really relying on the other three. Hopefully we'll pick up where I lack. But how do you guys feel about the 80s?
80s is a really good decade. I don't think it's as on par as the 60s and 70s, but it's a really good decade.
Yeah, for me, my mom grew up in the 80s. She was a teenager by that point. So, yeah, she grew up on the 80s stuff. She went to many concerts during that time. And so, yeah, all that kind of passed down to me.
Right.
She played a lot of 80s stuff. And so, yeah, once I started getting some music, then I started exploring these bands and artists and all these songs. And, yeah, I've been pretty into it. It's like my second favorite decade, honestly.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not as familiar with all the albums in the 80s. I know a lot about all the songs.
Okay.
And while the 1970s is my favorite decade for music, I feel like if I had a time machine, the 80s is the first decade I want to go back to and see what life was like back then.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like in the 70s, like you got all this great music, but then you got like Watergate, and like it still has a little bit of the political turmoil of the 1960s. By the 80s, even though the Cold War was still going on, I feel like things had settled down a little bit. I mean, there still was some stuff going on. See Genesis's Land of Confusion song. But I feel like the 1980s was a lot more stable. And again, like, not saying there wasn't stuff going on. I know, like, drug abuse was a big thing back then.
Yeah.
Again, Cold War. But for the most part, I feel like it was a more stable, better living conditions decade. And while I'm not as familiar with a lot of the albums, I need to get onto that. I do know a lot about the songs, and the music is still great. It's different, but it's still great.
That's interesting because, yeah, it makes me think of like the 60s and 70s were definitely music was definitely of the time of the protest movements going on, the civil rights movements going on. So definitely reflects the decade. That's kind of interesting to think about.
Yeah.
And what the 80s mean. I don't know. That's something I have to think about more. Like I said, yeah, definitely more stable. Maybe Cold War's ending. Like I said, Berlin Wall will come down soon. Late in the 80s, the early 90s.
Yeah.
We start getting into that. But yeah, no major wars like we had. Like the Vietnam War was really really dominating. Yeah, a lot of everything that was going on. Yeah, but yeah, I got let's see Adam Finley doing
Hello.
50,
Hello.
and then I got my sister saying hi. I guess. And Alan, it's morning. Okay,
Oh, good morning.
kind of for us. But yeah, so we're gonna talk about 50. We're gonna four of us gonna put our heads together, put together 50 albums we think everybody should listen to from this decade if you haven't listened to it already, or should even own on albums. Though I looked at my list and I only own two albums from the 80s, so I'm like really lacking in the 80s personally. Um, but yeah, we're gonna go to Bryer is gonna start us off because I think this is his one of his strongest decades, I guess. So I think he's good to start off on this. I'm gonna go second, Garrett go third, and then Nick fourth. So that would be it. So that will give um, me and Bryer will have 13 picks, while Garrett and Nick will have 12. Since Nick and Garrett got 13 the last two times,
Yeah.
so now it's switched to me and Bryer get the 13. So
I don't know if I'm even going to be able to have 12 for the 90s. I seriously need to brush up on my 90s.
yeah, um, yeah, we'll probably do something different for the 90s part. Yeah, for sure. Um, yeah, so getting into the 80s, first going to kick it off to Bryer to kind of give a summary of the music of the 80s.
All right. So to kind of summarize the music of the 80s, obviously a lot is going on there because 80s technology is going crazy. Um, by this point, the synthesizer is becoming really mainstream. It brought in new wave, synth pop, dance music, like all that was really starting to become popular in this time, and also that was kind of like the big criticism of the 80s music, especially people who grew up in the 60s and 70s. They feel that that rawness that the 60s and 70s had, it was kind of lost because everything was all polished, everything was much clearer. But besides that, like for me it still sounds really good. Sounds really nice. So drum machines are also in style, which ironically was started by Phil Collins. Well, he kind of popularized it.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, so the drum machine was really used all the time. Um, let's see, and of course, even though the thing is, I would say the '80s was kind of the era where '70s was kind of like you had the rock stars, but by the '80s, this was the rise of the modern day pop star, and we're gonna hopefully some of us will showcase a lot of those big pop stars that blew up in the '80s. Um, so that's gonna be interesting. Um, Even though the pop is still like the big thing, like rock is still around. Like rock didn't go away. It just kind of changed with the times. It's again, like I said before, it got more polished. But the rock, it was like more commercial sounding. Like it also, the '80s was kind of also the decade of the arena show, where everything was played in stadiums, and all these big bands were all just going around, going in different places. So rock was still great, but heavy metal was also starting to come up. You know, it started in the early '70s, but then over the years, it's starting to find its own sound. Um, so '80s is very much a big thing in the '80s. You have the more underground stuff like thrash metal and stuff like that, but then you have the more commercial side where you have the hair metal or the glam metal where a lot of people just couldn't stay away from the hairspray.
Yeah.
Hairspray was very big in that time. So
Looking
yeah,
at you,
so
Bon Jovi.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. So yeah, Bon Jovi, Poison, Motley Crue, like all those bands
Yeah.
were all the rage. Um, there's one more genre I do wanna mention because I'm gonna assume none of us have this genre in our list, but I do want to mention hip hop and rap
I
because
said, yeah. Yeah.
this was the year where it got started,
Yeah.
and even though it's not on, it's not on our list,
It's
right?
on my list, though.
No.
Yeah, no, but yeah, I want to acknowledge that because that was a
Yeah.
big
Yeah.
thing, and kind of similar, kind of got more polished or more refined as the decade went on.
Hmm.
And it's still very popular to this day. So just want to
Yeah.
acknowledge that.
Oh, yeah.
So
It's a huge genre. Yeah, for
yeah,
definitely.
yeah. So apologies for the rap fans out
You're
there.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, other than that, that pretty much summarizes the '80s music scene as a in a nutshell.
Yeah. I was just thinking as you're talking, I think of MTV as being like the big thing in the 80s, wasn't
Right, exactly. MTV, like it was really starting, especially in the pop scene, but it was all about the looks. The
it?
look
Yeah.
was really starting to become a big thing.
Yeah. Music videos are becoming a big thing now. And
Yeah.
that was a big deal during the whole thing. I
Hmm.
want my MTV, I think they said it.
Yeah,
Oh
exactly.
yeah.
Great. I think
Uh,
practically Michael Nesmith from the Monkees practically made MTV.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
yeah, it's true.
Yeah, I
Uh,
forgot the story and how he played a role in MTV, but basically he sort of made MTV. He didn't come up with the idea, but he was sort of in the making of it. So shout outs to him.
well,
I,
yeah, they had to do all those monkeys music videos for the TV show.
I mean, I
Yeah.
bet MTV really helped make some artists. Like, I know Will Al Yankovic really
Right.
Yeah.
flourished during the
Yeah.
MTV era because of that, because music videos were so popular. But yeah,
I
uh,
mean, Oz music video for "Take on Me," like I
yeah,
Oh
think the
yeah.
more
huge,
iconic song.
very true.
Peter Gabriel's Sledgehammer with
Yeah,
the
yeah,
Hmm.
claymation stop motion video.
yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Definitely helped the music in some ways. Yeah, I think.
And there was this kid. His name is I think Michael Jackson. He had a
Mhm.
music video called
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, that guy.
Thriller.
I've heard of him.
yeah,
Didn't he rip off Weird Al?
yeah. We're not
Yeah, he
beat it.
did. He did. He totally ripped off Fat.
Totally weird off.
Yeah.
Totally. All right. All right. So yeah, it's a good summary of the '80s, Bryer. And so we're gonna start with you to start us off on what's the first song we should put on our list.
All right, so first album to showcase here. So also, oh yeah, I almost forgot to mention
Uh,
before I get to it, but also the mediums of how people listen to music was changing. You still had your records, but of course, it also brought rise to the CD. So
mhm.
that's where so the CD started. Also, cassettes were popular too.
I think the cassette was kind of the most popular thing during the 80s.
Yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah, eight track tapes maybe.
8 tracks were like kind of phasing out, but they were
Yeah,
big in the 70s.
yeah.
Cas-
I grew up with cassette tapes personally. Yeah,
mm, yeah,
mm,
I think cassette tapes were big. CDs like started coming out, but like they were for like the collectors who
probably more
like
expensive
yeah,
maybe.
they were for the
yeah.
really expensive sound systems because it was like crystal clear digital audio. And
Hmm.
then by like 1991, there was no records, and so then CDs were like the norm.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
exactly.
I mean, I remember getting a CD for the first time. It was a big deal. It was. I could have started collecting way before Bryer even was born.
I
Probably.
know, right?
I could have beat him on the CD collection thing, or I
Yeah,
did at one time.
could have been Jason the CD
Yeah,
collector.
I could have done the whole CD thing.
Jason's CD showcase.
See,
I would have had a
Jason,
leg.
yeah,
Higher.
Jason, the old CD millennial.
All right.
All right. Anyhow, so now the first album I'm going to show because first off, I'm going to go ahead because of course I want to get this album out of the way. I'd say I'm the biggest fan of this band, but it was huge when it came out. It's still very huge to this day. Of course, it's going to be Back in Black by
Oh, okay.
AC/DC.
All
Okay,
right.
so my roommate is having me go through the AC/DC albums, and
Oh,
I've
really?
listened to that album. It's my second favorite AC/DC album.
Oh, cool.
My
Oh,
favorite
nice.
is actually For Those About to Rock.
That's a good one too. Yeah, that's probably
Like
my
I
favorite
love
of
the
Bon Scott.
I love the cannons on that. Oh no,
Yeah, yeah,
that was Brian Johnson's second one.
yeah. That's
It came out after Back in Black, but there's like cannons on it, and like all the songs were really good.
yeah. Oh yeah.
And it, like,
But yeah, Back in Black. I mean, it's one of the best-selling albums of all time. I mean, it's like probably in top five if you actually look at the numbers.
Oh, really?
Um, oh yeah, it was huge. I mean, it was the first album with their current lead singer Brian Johnson,
Yeah.
who of course took over after their former lead singer Bon Scott passed away, and so the band was kind of like, what are we gonna do now? We don't our lead singer who has been at the front for so many years is now gone. So how are we going to carry on? Well, they found Brian Johnson, who was at this point kind of down on his luck, shall we say, because he was in the music business, but he left it and became a car repairman, I think. And so,
Really?
Looks like
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. So, yeah. But the reason why the band knew of Brian Johnson was because Bon Scott met Brian at a show one time, and Bon heard Brian sing, and Bon was like, "Oh, he's pretty cool." And so the band just remembered that statement, and they're like, "We got to find this guy." And so they brought him in. He auditioned. He nailed it. He comes in for this album, and yeah, I mean, I've heard interviews with Brian Johnson was that because he was the new guy in the band, he felt there was like an intimidation because at this point AC/DC had a huge cult following, and so obviously new singer is like, okay, either the fans are going to love me or they're going to absolutely hate me.
Yeah.
So one thing he said was that if this was the last album he was going to sing on, he was going to put all of it into it, and it really shows. He just does not hold back on this album. And so yeah, so many classic tracks on here like Hell's Bell, Shoot the Thrill, of course the title track, of course. You Shook Me All Night Long, Rock and Roll Ain't Noise Pollution. Yep, Z definitely had to be on this list, and yeah, that's my first choice.
Oh yeah, it has to be on the list. I agree.
Mm.
I'm not even a
Even
fan, but it has to be there.
even though I despise the album, I do agree it's essential card placement. And
Yeah.
the way
I don't
I'm
despise
sorry,
the
but
album.
I don't mind the Tom Scott ACDC, but once the other guy goes in, I can't stand
Really?
ACDC.
Okay.
Like they really go down. Like I like Dirty Deeds Thunder Cheap. That's the only like album I say it's like, oh, this is a good album. I even own that album on CD. I wouldn't own it on vinyl, but it's decent.
I would disagree. I really like Black and Black, and then the next two, uh, For Those About to Rock and Flick of the Switch, are both
Oh, yeah.
really good. I haven't gone
Yeah.
any past that because my roommate is like buying the albums in chronological order. So the next one is the '74 Jailbreak album, which is a Bon Scott album that was released in the '80s, like
Okay.
later on. But then I hear it gets a little downhill with Fly on the Wall.
Yeah,
What's the
yeah,
name of the album with Thunderstruck on it?
the Razor's Edge.
Okay.
See, I really like Angus Young's guitar playing.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
That's what gets me into ACDC. It's just his riffs and guitar solos are so good, and he's fun to watch on stage.
yeah,
as
oh,
well.
yeah,
Oh,
definitely.
Okay, so my roommate, speaking of AC, because my roommate is a huge fan of ACDC.
Okay.
He bought a Live in Paris 1978 DVD. It was a movie that came out right after Bon Scott had died, kind of as a tribute for him. And Angus Young, the whole time, is just like
Yeah.
running around and like rolling around on the floor.
He doesn't stand still.
And then he
Nope.
like climbed up on the amp, did a solo, and jumped off the amp.
Like,
And it was like, what?
I know. And people always say he's on drugs, but actually no, he's just on sugar.
No.
He just eats a bunch of candy before the show, and then boom, he's out there.
I have a hard enough time playing guitar just standing still, but he's just
Yeah.
banging his head and he's just going. And I'm like, man, he's doing crazy stuff on there. But yeah, great pick.
There was one part in the movie where like his strap came off and he's balancing it and he's still going crazy and moving and playing. And then like the tech comes up, puts the strap back on, he picks it up, swings it around,
Oh my god.
keeps going.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Alan said CDs were super expensive. Mixing your own cassette tapes was a thing, which is something I did. Yeah. That was a fun thing. 80s. My first pick, as you can see behind me, I usually try to put my first pick behind me. It's one of the two albums I own, kind of basically from the 80s, I guess you can say. And that is Lionel Richie's Can't Slow Down, which I've talked a lot about on my channel, and I think you've all heard me talk about. I feel like I'm the biggest fan of this album. I don't hear other people talk about this album. Came from the year I was born, 1983, which I like that fact. But I really like Lionel Richie. He has such a great, smooth voice, great pop voice, kind of R&B pop. He came from the 70s. He was with a band called the Commodores and wrote a lot of big hit songs for them. Then went solo. This is his second album. His first album was self-titled Lionel Richie album, which is another really good album. This is the second one. This is definitely his biggest one, most popular one, I would say, best-selling one. It even won the Grammy Album of the Year for 1985, I think, even though this came out in 83. For some reason, it didn't win till 85. I don't know how that works, but it won like Album of the Year. That's how big it was. And maybe, I don't know if it won Song of the Year, I forget, but it has a couple really huge songs on here I absolutely love. So I love him for singing, his songwriting. I love the pop sound that he gives. But All Night Long, really great pop song. Kind of a cool song, like they're just partying all night. Then Stuck on You is a great love song. One of my favorite love songs of all time. Absolutely love it. In fact, I always say Lionel Richie is like a great love songwriter. Like that's really his expertise. And I always think if I had a date, I would put on Lionel Richie music and turn down the lights, and that's how I'd romance my date. I think that would work real well because he writes such good music for that kind of occasion. Anyways, Penny Lover is really good, another good song. And then my absolute favorite is Hello. I absolutely love that song. I think it kind of closes the album maybe even. But, the Hello, is it me you're looking for? So good. Such a great voice on that. And it's a big album of that time, and it's my favorite of the 80s. So I have Can't Slow Down by Lionel Richie. All right, now we go to Garrett for your first.
I know we were talking about a lot of changes that happened in the 80s, but let me let you guys know that changes aren't permanent, but change is. Okay. My first pick of the 1980s is my favorite album of the 1980s. I wanted to make sure to take it before anybody else did. This is Moving Pictures by Rush.
Good one.
It is my favorite album by Rush. I know that's kind of a basic choice, but it's just because it is. Like, they have lots of albums that come very close. 2112, Farewell to Kings, Hemispheres, Permanent Waves, those Signals, those ones all come really close. But in my opinion, this is kind of Rush's, big best album because it's really a good combination of the early sound and the sound that they're going towards after this album. Because you still have, the big progressive kind of epics like The Camera Eye or, Witch Hunt, but you also have some more... It's I wouldn't exactly call it pop because it's, it can be played on radio, but it's not exactly, Rush isn't exactly selling out with this album. You listen to Tom Sawyer, and that's not really a... It's not really a pop song, even though you hear it on the radio a bunch. It's a very complicated song, and Neil Peart's drumming on that song is not easy to replicate. And I tried to learn the entirety of Moving Pictures on guitar. I only made it halfway, but Alex Lifeson's guitar on this record is not easy.
Yeah.
as well as Geddy Lee's bass playing.
Okay, no, I didn't even try Geddy Lee's bass playing. I'm a guitar player. I'm not a bass player. But from what I know about guitar and translating it to bass, listening to that is like YYZ. That's impossible. That that part where that little bass fill with the harmonics. Yeah. Anyway, starts out with Tom Sawyer, which is a really cool song, kind of adding synthesizers to Rush's sound. Alex's guitars are great. Really good drumming. It has one of the coolest drum fills ever when Neil Peart goes that part's really cool. It's just a really great song. And then you got Red Barchetta, which is a song about whenever motor cars get outlawed, and so this guy sneaks into his uncle's farm. And his uncle was like, "Oh, I've got something to show you," and it's an old Ferrari or something whatever Red Barchetta is, and he takes it out for a drive. But then the police are chasing him in their air cars, but his car is smaller than theirs, so it gets away on the bridge because it's big enough to fit him, but not the police's cars. And then you got YYZ, which is a mind-bending instrumental song. It's really cool. I like the guitar riff. The bass playing and the drumming are amazing, and then Alex's solo. Alex sounds like he's trying to summon the aliens to build the pyramid or something when he plays that solo on YYZ. I don't know, that's the best way I can explain it. Especially that at the end. I don't know. That just sounds very like Egyptian, if that makes any sense. It's probably the scale he's using. And then, of course, you got Limelight, which is my favorite song on the album. Very
Yeah.
personal to Neil about fame and fortune, kind of being like I don't know all these people are here to see me. They act like they know me really well, but I don't know them. And then you flip it over, you got the epic two-part The Camera Eye, kind of comparing and contrasting London to New York City. And you got Witch Hunt, which kind of talks a little bit about the Salem witch trials, and it closes out with the epic Vital Signs, which is kind of a tribute to the Police. So really great album, my favorite album of the '80s. 10 out of 10. Check it
If you
out.
would have asked me like 3 months ago, like what I thought if you putting moving pictures as your favorite Rush album, I'd be like, of course you did. But now I'm like, this album is brilliant, and Vital Signs is now my favorite Rush song. It's been for a while now. Really
Vital,
great.
it's sad because Vital Signs like isn't even in my top four, but yet it's still like one of my favorite songs. Like that's just how good the album. It's probably my number five on the album, but
It'd
that's
be
just
my
how good the
third
album.
favorite. It'd be my favorite Rush album if it wasn't for Witch Hunt. That's still a lesser song for me, but it's still great though. But it's not on par with the other 6 songs.
I think I get that now. I used to like it more than I do now.
Yeah. Okay. Now for my favorite album
Yep.
of the '80s.
That'd be
Of
Nick.
course, gonna go to Crosby, Stills and Nash's Young's album, American Dream.
Of
Oh,
course.
I love that
No.
album.
Oh no,
Brian
oh
pull it
no.
out.
Oh no. Joking. That's not my favorite album of the '80s. That album's horrible. Yeah. If you watch my video, well, not my video, but if you watch
No.
previous videos of me, you'll know I don't like that album at all. It's a disgrace after the brilliant Deja Vu album. But my real favorite album of the '80s is Signals by Rush. I know another Rush album.
Another Rush album.
Yeah. I really, it's my I like it more than Moving Pictures because every song I feel like is great, and each song is on par to each other. Where do I even begin? Subdivisions. Oh my God, Subdivisions. That song is amazing. I
That's
love
my
that
favorite
track.
Rush song.
Oh, I could definitely see that. It's in my top 5 favorite Rush songs at least.
Me
It's
too.
so good. And then the Analog Kid. Oh, another amazing track. Chemistry is another. It's a great song too. Digital Man is also really good. The Weapon, which is part 2 of Fear. Witch Hunt was part 3 of Fear. Which this is my favorite of the 3 parts. My least favorite's the one from the album after that. Grace Under Pressure, which is The Enemy Within. That's my least favorite of the 3. But yeah, it's my favorite, The Weapon. New World Man is another just great song. Love that track. Losing It's great and ends out strongly with Countdown. I My favorite album was 21 Hope, but then when I go listen to this album, I'm like, dang, this album is. Can't believe I'm saying this, but I think this is better than 2112, and yeah, I still think that.
It's a good pick.
All right, good. We got some Rush stuff going on. I'm not as familiar with Rush, so that's one I have to catch up on.
We'll have to do some Rush reviews over
yeah.
on my channel.
Yeah. All right, Bryer, what do you got? Another hard rock?
Oh, yeah, definitely. All right, next up. Okay, this is my favorite album from this band. And of course, we're going to go with Def Leppard with Pyromania.
Pyromania.
There we go. So, yes, it's my
That album
favorite.
is epic.
Yeah, I mean, I could have gone with Hysteria because technically that sold more, but to me, this is without a doubt their best album. To me, it's a great blend because it's very commercial sounding, but still keeps their hard rock roots. Because with Hysteria, it's pretty much not as hard rocking, but this is a great. It still rocks hard. I mean, it starts out with the song "Rock Till You Drop," so that tells you. So it's a great opening track, sets the tone. You have the hits like "Photograph," which of course it's a really well-known song, one of my favorites. Then it goes to the Stage Fright, very underrated song by them.
That's
Not
my
many
favorite
people
Def
talk.
Leppard song.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely doesn't. That song does not get enough attention. Um, Too Late for Love's pretty good. Die Hard, The Hunter, great guitar on that one. Another big, well-known hit, Foolin'. That's one of my mom's favorite songs. So she actually saw Def Leppard in concert. So she has fond memories of them. Rock of Ages, again another pretty well known song on here. Coming Under Fire, Actions Not Words, and then it closes out with Billy's Got a Gun, which is a dark song but still has their Def Leppard sound, which is doesn't sound that depressing, but it's actually very happy sounding with a dark edge to it. But Mutt Lange's producing, and funny enough, he also produced Back in Black. So again, so the album's gonna sound pretty good. So yeah, it's great. It's a great album, and it's my favorite Def Leppard. So that's my second pick.
Oh, and that weird thing at the end of the album where it's like,
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
like whenever that came on my speakers, I was like, because it was loud on the speakers, and it like I could feel it, and it was like, what's going on here? This is awesome. And then it just kind of faded out, but I was like, whoa. Like the whole album was jaw dropping. However you say that. Jaw dropping. There was no dull moments on that album. It's great.
Oh yeah.
Billy's got a gun. Janie's got a gun. Joe's got a gun. Who's all got a gun?
No, it was the 80s, and in America. Well, Def Leppard weren't American, but.
So for my second pick, I'm going with one of my favorite bands from this period, and that is U2, and I think their biggest album, that is Joshua's Tree, came out in 1987.
That was one of my picks.
Was it?
Mine too, so I'm glad that we can cross that one off the list. I can get another album in that I want to.
Yeah, definitely one of the first ones I put on my list when I was making my list up. I do love the U2 sound. Bono, I love his vocals. I think he's a great vocalist. And of course, Edge, of course, great guitar player and great musicianship throughout. I think I even like the drummer has sometimes he has a bit of a military drum beat. I don't know what you call it on some stuff that I really like, if I remember right. But this album, like I said, it was a huge album. Sold a lot of records. I'm pretty sure it's their biggest album. Even though they had other albums that have won like Grammy Album of the Years, I think in the 90s maybe. But you start off with three. I mean, it's so crazy when they start off with the three biggest hits of all time in their career with The Streets with No Name, which I absolutely love that song. I love the beginning of that song. How it goes into that guitar, goes into with the bass and everything coming in, and such a great sounding song, great chorus. But then you got With or Without You. It's probably my favorite U2 song of all time, to be honest.
Yeah, it's the first song I played on bass.
Really? Okay.
I mean, it's very easy.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely love that song. So good. And then I still haven't found what I'm looking for. I believe it's the third one, and they all come right at the very beginning of the album. So they hit you with the three huge hits. And the criticism of the album is, after those first three songs, it kind of goes downhill. Which
it doesn't. Like, they may not be as popular, but everything on this album is amazing.
Which I kind of get that criticism because those three songs are just absolutely amazing. But I still think it's a really good album. Definitely one I need to get in my collection. It's my favorite YouTube album for sure. Though I haven't listened to all the albums. I think
it's the only U2 album I've listened to.
Yeah.
But it's amazing.
I know, like Wars. I think it's Wars.
War, yeah.
Was it War and Achtung Baby or the other
Achtung
ones
Baby.
I hear a lot about?
Yeah. Those are pretty good. But yeah, and How to Dismantle a Bomb, I think was.
Oh, and what's the other one? Unforgettable Fire. That's the other.
Oh yeah, that one too.
Okay. Yeah, I need to listen to all of them sometime. But yeah, I really like the band sound. Like I said, so yeah.
Maybe I should listen to more U2. I might listen through their albums.
Yeah, they've definitely made some pretty good albums.
Yeah, they definitely were huge in the 80s, I think, and 90s.
Oh yeah, they were one of the biggest live acts at that time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. All right, so that's why I got Joshua's Tree. Now I got to Garrett.
Okay, I gotta decide what I want to do next. I'm gonna go with this album, which was a staple when I was in high school. Still love this album. I am going with a band that should have had a few albums on the 70s list, but for whatever reason didn't. I'm going to fix that with this 80s list, and I'm going to go to Journey, and
Okay.
the album is Escape. This album is amazing. You start out with Don't Stop Believing, which is Journey's biggest song. Has that epic piano intro. Neil Sean, great guitar in that. And then you get Stone in Love, which might be my favorite Journey song. That is
You too?
amazing.
Oh,
Yeah,
I love that.
it's my favorite. It's definitely my favorite guitar solo from Neil Sean.
Yeah,
That was amazing.
at the end. Oh, I always replay that one section of the song at the end with the guitar.
Do-do-do-do.
Oh,
Yeah.
but when I first heard it, I'm like, this should have, in my opinion, I thought that should have been the biggest song on the
And
album.
then the part that he goes like, and it goes like the really crazy part, and then he just keeps going higher and higher up on the neck, where it's like, and he hits the really high note.
Yeah, I like the third track. I always forget the name of it.
Oh,
I really
who's
like it.
crying now? I
Oh,
love
yeah.
that song.
That's
It's
a
a
good
great
one.
song, but after Stone in Love, I'm always like, God, not as good.
It's kind of a cool down from Stone in Love, honestly.
Yeah,
You kind of need it to get between that and the next song, Keep On Running,
true.
which is probably my least favorite song on the album. It's either that or Wanted Dead or Alive. Those are two of my least favorites. But then you got another incredible song that's really underrated. I don't really hear anybody talk about it, but it's Still They Ride. That
Oh yeah,
song
that's
is
I love that one.
dude.
Oh, that's
Steve Perry
incredible.
sings the heck out of that song.
Mm.
And then that's another really underrated guitar solo from Neil Sean. That's what I think that's technically the most difficult guitar solo to play on the record from what I like from my ear. Because I listen to the album and every time I hear the Still They Ride guitar solo, I'm like, how does he play that fast? And like did he actually like think about what he was playing, or did he just like okay, I'm just gonna improvise something. Okay, there we go, let's put that on the record. But amazing. It's kind of a power ballad, which Journey is known for. And you flip the record over, you got the title track, which is really great. Um, Lay It Down is Steve Perry's highest recorded note. Every time he hits that, it's like, whoa. Wanted Dead or Alive, another one of my least favorite songs on the album, and it's still great. Mother Father, most underrated song on the album. I
Oh,
can't
yeah.
decide which is my favorite song on this album. Is it Stone in Love? Is it Mother Father? Is it Still They Ride? Or like even like I know Don't Stop Believing is overplayed, but it's still great. It's like
Yeah, it's a great song.
which one is the best song on the album? But Mother Father, the stories that Steve Perry went into the vocal booth and nailed it on one take, which is crazy when you listen to his performance on there. And again, more great guitar work on this, great piano work. I haven't even mentioned yet. It's Jonathan Cain replaced Greg Rowley on this album, and even though it was sad to see Greg go, it was cool whenever he and Steve did duets on their '70s albums. Jonathan Cain is a really great replacement, and he helped co-write a lot of the songs on this album. And something's on the next album, which unfortunately is not going to be on the list. Frontiers. I'd like it to be on the list, but it's front-loaded. But yeah, that's another great album, but it's front loaded, so I had to choose the better of the Journey albums. And then you end off with the classic Open Arms, which was written by Jonathan Cain.
So
And Neil Sean said he had no idea. He's like, this is not going to be a hit. This is terrible. I don't want to play this live. And then they were cheering for an encore, and Jonathan Cain just goes, "We're gonna play Open Arms." And so Neil's like, "Oh, okay, whatever." And then they play it, and then he gets off, and he looks at Jonathan and goes, "Man, that was bad." And he like smiles at him. It's like that. He says that's when it clicked, is after they played and everyone went crazy.
Cool.
So good.
Yeah, you know what's crazy? Listen to this, Garrett. I listened to this album before I listened to any Beatle albums.
Really.
I was like either 8 or 9 years old when I first heard this album. I heard Don't Stop Believing, and I was on iTunes, and I listened to the full album, and I really liked it. I listened to that album so many times, and
This is another one of the albums that moved me away from greatest hits, because I had Journey's greatest hit. Well, I didn't have the CD. I burnt the CD because Either me or my brother had bought Journey's greatest hits off of iTunes, and I wanted to burn that to a CD, and then I got it on the record. But I wanted to have like a lot of the Journey albums on CD. I don't know why CD, but I was like trying to find albums that I wanted to eventually get on record, and I'm like, I like Journey. Let's see. Oh, this has "Don't Stop Believing." It's got "Who's Crying Now." Let's listen to this album, and it was like, oh wow, okay, like I should probably get this album. So it was another one of the albums that kind of moved me away from greatest hits.
Yeah.
Sergeant Pepper, Thriller, Escape, Toto 4. Those are kind of the albums that moved me away from greatest hits.
Yeah. Great albums.
Yeah.
Now for my second album. This album to me is super loaded with hits, and I think there's like 7 singles that came out from this album, and
Whoa.
I think every single song on this album is worth being a single. And that's another other than An Innocent Man by Billy Joel.
Yes.
What is it?
An Innocent
An
Man
Innocent
by
Man
Billy
by
Joel.
Billy Joel.
An Innocent Man?
Oh yeah. That's a great album.
Yeah, I forgot where I ranked it on our Billy Joel list, but Easy Money and the title track, The Longest Time, This Night, Tell Her About It. That's side 1. And then you flip over the record. Then you open up with Uptown Girl. Even I know Careless Talk and Chris Lee are B-sides, but they're still great songs. Leave a Tender Moment Alone is brilliant. And it closes out on such a great note, keeping the faith. Like, this album is so loaded, and I like Glass Houses, and it may or may not be on the list from one of us, but I always preferred this album.
I like Glass Houses better, but this definitely needs to be on the list. Especially because this is kind of Billy Joel doing a doo-wop revival, kind of bringing the music of the late 50s and the early 60s back into the light, but doing it Billy Joel style.
Uptown Girl was a great Four Seasons tribute.
Yeah. And I don't know who it's supposed to sound like, but the title track definitely reminds me of My Girl by the Temptations.
I could definitely see that being the Temptations tribute. I know The Longest Time was supposed to be like a doo-wop tribute.
Yeah.
Yeah. And fun fact, in high school, I sang in a barbershop quintet and choir, and we did The Longest Time.
Oh, man.
Nice.
I love that song.
It's fun.
Yeah.
The whole album's great.
I had to sing the high part. It's like, whoa,
Yeah.
for the longest time, woo, that part.
All right, great one. I definitely need to listen more Billy Joel. 'Cause I really like Billy Joel, but
You know that album, Jason? You got to listen to that album. It's an amazing album.
Jason, have you even listened to The Stranger?
I listened to The Stranger. That's
Okay.
the I know.
The Stranger, 52nd Street, and Innocent Man are 3 extremely essential albums to listen to.
And Turnstiles and Glass Houses.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Oh yeah. It might be my. Well, I don't know. He has so many.
He
great
has too
albums,
many
but
good. I listened to Cold Spring Harbor again the other day on my record player, like the original copy, and I changed the pitch, and I'm like, man, even though Billy Joel hates this album, it's so good.
Even his weaker '70s album, Piano Man, I still really like.
Yeah.
Man, yeah.
I mean, the song isn't weak, but the album is kind of.
Okay. All right.
Back to me.
Back to Bryer for third pick.
All right. Well, we ain't leaving the Rock anytime soon right now. Okay, so here we go. This was another one that had to be on here. Probably one of the most well-known debut albums ever from this period. Of course, it's Guns N' Roses, Appetite for Destruction. Yep. I mean, for a first album, this definitely was huge. Had so many hit singles on here, and many songs that are still played on the radio to this day, no matter how many times we may be tired of them. I'm not yet, but regardless. Starts out with Welcome to the Jungle, of course, which was a great song to open up with. It's So Easy, Night Train's a really great, is really good. Always like that one. Um, Mr. Brownstone's another pretty good song. Out to Get Me is not one of my favorites, but it's okay. Probably my favorite song on here is Paradise City, which always loved that one. Again, my mom was huge into Guns N' Roses, so she played Paradise
Yeah.
City a lot.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so my Michelle, I've always liked. Think About You, one of the more lesser known songs on this one. But then you have a tiny song. It was kind of a hit. It was called "Sweet Child of Mine." I don't know if you've heard that one. Maybe you've heard the guitar riff. Maybe.
I think I've heard that guitar.
But yeah, maybe yeah. I'm just okay. That's good. That's good. Just want to make sure. But yeah, then you have "You're Crazy," "Anything Goes." Then it closes out with "Rocket Queen," which, funny enough, on that song, at one point in that song, you hear moaning, and you hear Axel moaning, and there's a girl next to him. That was not
Oh
fake.
boy.
He was actually having
Boy.
sex with somebody in the
That,
booth.
that was not fake.
Oh boy.
Yep. And apparently it was one of the members' girlfriend at the time, so that was awkward.
Oh.
That's 80s for you.
Oh yeah.
Oh boy.
Yep. That was
I heard that side 1 is supposed to be the Guns side, and side 2 is the Roses side. So like all of the love songs are on side 2, and then all of the other songs are on side 1.
Yeah. I agree to that. I'd say it's like that as well. But yeah, I had to mention this one. Uh, yeah, that was my next choice.
Yeah, I listened to it just the other day just to prepare for this video.
Mhm.
And like I'm not a fan of what's his name?
Axl Rose.
Me neither.
His vocals. I'm
Now
not,
Slash is a really good guitar player,
but yeah, once I got the Sweet Child of Mine though, that was like the one song on the album I was like, I just love this guitar on this album or on the song.
And funny enough, Slash hates doing that song because the riff was actually just something he was just messing around with. Like, oh look, hey guys, look how stupid this sounds. And Axl was like, hey, that sounds pretty good.
sounds pretty
Let's use it. So yeah,
I've heard that
that's how
song many times to enjoy it again.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's played quite a bit.
I've never listened to that album. I've heard
It's a great
Welcome to the
album.
Jungle, and I've heard Sweet Child of Mine. So I've already heard part of the album.
The album's great.
Well,
That was actually that I wanted that to be on my list, but I'm glad Bryer showed it. Brought it up.
yeah, I had it on my list just in case someone didn't mention it, but I don't have to worry about that now.
You're welcome.
Welcome to the Jungle is maybe the most played song of all time.
You have to hear the
My
movies
pro-
the most.
At my prom, the theme was "Welcome to the Jungle." That was our prom.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean it's one of the most cliched probably prom themes you can have. But
Hmm.
Jumanji 2 or Jumanji 1 was "Welcome to
Oh,
the
yeah.
Jungle."
Yeah.
I mean they use it all the time.
That was apparently Jack Black's idea.
Yeah, it was
To call it Welcome to the Jungle. Because Jack Black is a big music fan.
Oh,
Yeah.
All right. My third pick. Gonna touch on somebody that I don't think we've talked about last time that we probably should have, and that is Tom Petty.
Yes.
Um,
Why wasn't the Torpedoes album on there?
I don't think we got to that album, did we?
No, that one definitely
No.
should have been on there.
Yeah, it definitely needs. We'll probably correct that at a later date. But I'm going with Tom Petty's first solo album, Full Moon Fever. Yeah, Bryer, thank you. Came out in 1988. Of course, Tom Petty at this time was still with Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. Also, he made a ton of hits in the 70s and into the 80s, and would go on in the 90s even. But Tom, from what I understand, of course, he was really good friends with Jeff Lynne, and they kind of get together because I believe Jeff Lynne produced this album, if I remember right.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so he helped. Of course, they two collaborate together, of course, on another album I might talk about if anybody else doesn't talk about. But yeah, they're big collaborators. And it was interesting, this album, because it doesn't sound that much different from a Tom Petty Heartbreakers album to me, because it's Tom Petty's lead singer. He's writing the songs. And even some of
And
the
Mike Campbell's still on here as well.
what's that?
And Mike Campbell is still playing as
Yeah,
well.
I say and some of the Heartbreakers are on here as well. So it seemed like maybe the drummer wasn't on here, or somebody wasn't on here, and they were upset when they were playing the songs in concert because they're like playing it. They're like, I didn't even record the song, and I'm playing it, and so it caused a little bit of a rift, I think, in the band, and some band members left, if I remember right from my research, because I did a whole deep dive on them because I was not familiar with Tom Petty until recently. So this is like an album that it was more of a recent discovery for me, and I absolutely love it as well as some Tom Petty's other stuff. Uh, but yeah, this was a huge album. It has my favorite Tom Petty song, "Free Fallin'." Absolutely love that song. That was my number one song in my top 10 Tom Petty songs. Uh, Someone would say it's overplayed, probably because I remember the '90s when I was started listening to music, more recent music. That song was on the radio all the time. And I used to watch the music video quite a lot. It had a good music video to it. Tom Petty had a lot of good music videos. In fact, I enjoyed his
Oh,
stuff.
his one of "Don't Come Around Here No More," where he's the Mad Hatter, is
Yeah,
really trippy.
real trippy. Yeah, he had some good stuff. And but this was one that I remember playing all the time. I absolutely loved singing to this. Because when you get to that "Free Falling," it's so good, that chorus, so fun to sing to. But I absolutely love that song. It's a great song, in my opinion. And then you got "I Won't Back Down," which is maybe his second best song. I mean, it's another absolute classic that that he plays at every concert. And a friend of mine, Sam St. John, said that this is his or kind of like his anthem. And I was like, yeah, definitely. That's a song that's this real song about encouraging, don't back down, I won't back down. And so it's a song I hear quite a lot for encouragement reasons and stuff. And then also you got "Running Down a Dream," another hit song off of here. I also love I didn't write it down, but there's some other songs on there I absolutely love. I think uh, it's so bad. No, is that it? Was it?
You're So Bad.
I love "You're So Bad." Great song off of there. The Apartment song I enjoy quite a bit as well. Anyways, yeah, it's really a fantastic solo album. It's my third favorite album from Tom Petty, counting all of his stuff. But it's my favorite of his three solo albums. So I definitely need to talk more about Tom Petty. Hopefully, we'll get some more in at some point. But yeah, that's my pick.
Honorable mention to Southern Accents, which is not on my list, but I really like that album.
Yeah, it's another one. All right, Garrett.
Okay, so my next album is going to be an album that's by a band that. Oh wait, is something going on?
Yeah, you're kind of breaking out.
Okay, I think there's a Ghost in the Machine, which is my next album, Ghost in the Machine by the Police. This album is really great. It's probably like the black sheep of the Police's discography because it's very different than all their other albums. But man, is it great. It starts off really well with Spirits in the Material World, great bass playing from Sting, really cool keyboards on there. And then you got my favorite Police song, Every Little Thing She Does Is Magic.
Oh, I love that song.
Amazing. I love the piano. I love Stuart Copeland's drumming. Everything about that song is just amazing. And then another great song, Invisible Sun. That one's great. You got Demolition Man. That's another great song. Too Much Information. And then there's some really underrated stuff like Darkness, the final song. One World, Not Three. And then there's Omega Man, which is just absolutely incredible. Oh, and Secret Journey is great too. So it's a great album, very different than their other stuff. But if you want to see the Police go a little bit darker and like add some layering with like horns, keyboards, and even like Sting overdubbing his voice several times, definitely check this album out.
Yeah, I need to give that album a couple more listens because it's my least favorite by them.
It's a grower for the Police. Other than like Every Little Thing She Does Is Magic, it's pretty easy to get into, but like the rest of the album you got to listen to a few times, and then once you do, it's like, oh, this is pretty cool.
I've listened to that song way too many times, so Everything She Does Is Magic. So I don't know. That's kind of been the only thing that's been really setting me back.
Have a listen to. Okay, you probably would really like Omega Man. It
I
was
love
written
that song.
by Andy Summers, and it was supposed to be the lead single, but Sting and his big ego was like, no.
I actually really like that song. That was like the only song I was really interested in out of all of them. But well, I guess since you mentioned the Police, I might as well mention the Police.
All right.
Synchronicity.
Yes.
Uh, that album. Um, Even my dad really likes the album. I introduced it to him, and even he really liked it. What a fantastic record for them. First Synchronicity one. Of course, the one where they're basically saying synchronicity. Synchronicity. Walk in Your Footsteps is really good. Oh my God is great. Uh, Mother is so bad that it's funny though.
Yeah.
It sounds like something Keith Moon would have did if he was still alive.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Like it gives me Bellboy vibes for some reason. Miss Gordenko is great. Synchronicity 2, which is a big hit for them, as it should be because it's great. Every Breath You Take, even though it's extremely overplayed, and it's actually overplayed, but I'm not as sick and tired of it as I am with Every Breath, fucking Roxanne and every little thing she does is magic. Like I still can enjoy Every Breath You Take. King of Pain though is my favorite Police song. That song is brilliant. Wrapped Around Your Finger is great. Tea in the Sahara, which besides Mother, it's my least favorite song on the album.
Oh yeah.
I know all four of us really like that album, so I was
Yeah.
wondering who was going to have it on their list.
I knew it was going to be covered, so I didn't have it on my list because I was
Yeah,
like,
same here.
someone's going to take it.
Yeah, I talked with Nick beforehand. Like, okay,
Yeah.
if you talk about Synchronicity, then I'll talk about Ghost in the Machine because I have two Police albums on my list. Shout out to Senyata Mondada though. That's a great album. But
Yeah, I
it's
don't
not
think
on
it's
the list.
essential though.
Yeah, it's definitely my two favorite Police albums, but they only had 5, so
All 5 of them are great.
Zenyatta Matata is very front loaded. Like side 2, I'm not that interested in.
Yeah.
It's
I
my,
would agree.
that's the only like it would be my like I prefer the debut album over that album, but if the second side was nearly as good as the first side, I would actually think it's my second favorite Police album.
Yeah, no, it's like you got all the great songs are on side 1, and then side 2 it's like you got da do 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 da da da, and then you got a few okay songs. It's like, oh, Man in a Suitcase, and then it doesn't pick up for Man in a Suitcase.
And it's like Camel.
Oh yeah, Behind My Cam. Okay, I used to like that song, but then I heard that it won the Grammy for Best Rock Instrumental, and it beat out YYZ by Rush, and I haven't been able to listen to it since.
Me neither, honestly.
I even do a gag on my video on the Police.
yeah.
Yeah.
Do 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 do. Boom boom.
All right, back
Bryer?
to me. Okay, so where do I have my list, but where should I go next? Should I stick with the rock or should I take a break from it for a little bit? All right.
Find a good bridge of rock and pop that has both in the album.
Okay, I guess I'll go with this one then, because this is kind of
Hit us with
kind of a
some
little bit.
Japanese pop.
Sorry, what?
I said, hit us with some Japanese pop. I was just kidding.
Don't tempt me. Okay, anyhow. All right, so I'm gonna go with this album. So this was the one that replaced the Joshua Tree. This was I had to like grab that off the shelf. But yeah, I'm going to go with Foreigner up next, and I'm going to go with my
Okay.
favorite one of their 80s stuff, and that's 4.
Oh yeah.
Because
4.
it's their 4th album, and there's 4
Okay.
members at this point. So
Uh-huh.
yeah, it made sense. But yeah, I think this is it's either the debut or this album is usually my favorite. It kind of flip flops, but
Those are the
this-
only 2 Foreigner albums I own.
yeah, but yes, Nightlife's a great opening track, just a great kind of a good rock, kind of a poppy sort of sound. They have the big hit on here, Jukebox Hero.
Yeah.
Love that
yeah,
song.
yeah, just a great song, just to get you pumped. Break It Up's pretty good. You have the ballad Waiting for a Girl Like You,
Okay.
sucker for ballads, so
Yeah.
love that song, of course. An underrated song, Luann. I think that's a very underrated song, kind of a deeper cut, but I've always liked the chorus of it. It's always very catchy. Urgent is another very big hit on
Yeah.
here. Again, the keyboard on that one, and even has a saxophone solo on it, which is so good. Um, I'm gonna win is pretty good. Women in Black is pretty solid. Girl on the Moon, and Don't Let Go. So yeah, it's a great kind of a pop rock because their earlier stuff was kind of more in that more hard rock, not quite hard. I wouldn't say they're hard rock. They've always had that commercial edge to them, but definitely this was probably they're going more in that commercial sound. So yeah, I've always enjoyed this one, so I'm gonna mention this one.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with Foreigners. That's a band I need to catch up on as
They got
well.
some good albums.
Yeah,
The debut for Double Vision.
Division.
For that.
My dad introduced me to Foreigner through Double Vision. That was the album he owned back in the day.
It's a good one.
Hmm.
It's another album I'd say is front loaded though, because the last like few songs I don't really like.
So your fourth pick is 4. That's not real.
No,
How did that work out?
Jason's fourth pick was Led Zeppelin 4.
Yeah, it was. It's a great 4 albums. One of my
Yeah.
favorites.
I think I know what my fourth pick is going to be now.
All right, for my fourth pick, Simon Garfunkel is my favorite duo of all time, and also Paul Simon, one of my favorite solo artists. And he came out with one of his biggest albums, one of my favorite, probably maybe my favorite Paul Simon album, and that is Graceland. Yeah, came out in 1986. Huge album for, and I don't think we touched on any of his 70s stuff except for honorable mentions. He had some good 70s as
Still
well.
crazy after all these years. Should have totally been on the list.
It should have been.
Wasn't. I love that album so much.
Yeah, and I know. Well, I don't know if the song Paul Simon's Songbook. I don't know if that's a 70s album or that's a 60s.
That was 60s.
Because yeah, I know Nick loves that album for sure. Maybe Garrett does. I can't remember, but
I thought it sounded too much like just a demo tape of Paul Simon writing Simon and Garfunkel songs.
Yeah.
I know Nick's probably gonna hate me for saying that, but that's what I
Yeah.
thought.
I don't hate you for saying that. I can see where you're coming from. Like, I mean, you and Bryer probably hate me for saying that The Wall is the Pink Floyd's most overrated album. So
right.
I don't hate you
yeah.
for saying that, but it does hurt a little bit.
It hurts a little bit.
fair enough. I mean,
I'm
Please
totally
don't
fine.
say
I'm
anything
fine.
bad about Wish You Were Here. I love that album so much.
why would I say anything about that? The only maybe negative criticism is that I'm not as crazy about Welcome to the Machine as I am the other 4 songs. That's like the worst thing I could say about that album.
Oh, and hats off to Roy Harper for singing "Have a Cigar."
Don't even mention that name of that song. Oh,
But yeah, Graceland was one of his biggest, if not his biggest album. It won Album of the Year at the Grammys. He won like 2 or 3 after, because I think Still Crazy After All These Years won Grammy of the Year. Of course, Bridge Over Troubled Waters won. I mean, Paul Simon, man, he was on fire. I mean, and yeah, this was an interesting album because he took a lot of music from Africa, kind of. On this, you hear a lot of Africa influences on here. I think he even went to Africa.
Yeah.
Maybe
A lot of the musicians were from
Bryer.
Africa as well.
What's that?
A lot of the musicians were from Africa
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, and I've seen him do some songs from here, and he has like an African backup singers. I don't know that do like a dance and everything. So I don't know. He got real fascinated with going to Africa and using a lot of their music and all that. So it makes it a very unique album to me, anyways. Very interesting. I mean, you have Graceland, which is about going to Memphis. Graceland's Elvis.
Love that song.
Yeah, really good self-titled song, whatever. Yeah, good song there. I love Diamonds on the Soles of Her Shoes.
That song is incredible.
That's a
Oh,
great.
yeah.
Yeah, I love how he begins it and how he gets into it, and yeah, like I said, all the African influences and the background singers sounds really great. And his just the way he writes lyrics and the way he sings them is so interesting. I don't know how to explain it, but it's almost like conversational talking sometimes. I don't know. And then my favorite song, as I kind of alluded to in the intro, is "You Can Call Me Al." Absolutely love that song. That is a
It's great.
fun pop song.
Mm.
I don't understand the lyrics necessarily, but they're fun to listen to.
From what I've
Uh,
heard, it was written about going through a midlife crisis.
oh, really?
Yeah.
I also heard that I've heard several stories. I heard a story that maybe like Paul Simon was at a dinner party and someone called him the wrong name, and so he made a
Yes,
joke song off of
I
it.
think I did hear
Mm.
that. Yeah, I think I have heard that part. Yeah, that's where I got the idea. Someone called him Al or something, or called him something different. But I love that. Yeah, you can call me Al. Uh, I can be your bodyguard. I think you can be my lost long friend, or something like that. There's,
Mm-hmm. And you
uh,
have Chevy Chase in the video.
yes, oh, great video, Chevy Chase in there. They're playing different instruments. It's such a interesting song. The lyrics, I just love the conversation. No, but
And
what
the
really
bass playing
excites
in that song is just incredible
Oh
too.
yeah.
I love the horns. That really just
Oh
I
yeah.
on together. I absolutely bum 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 bum. I just like absolutely love the horn section on here. And there's some other instrument. There's so many interesting instruments if you listen to the song. There's something like a boom, boom. I'm like, what is that? It's
Oh,
cool.
that's the bass part, but then they play it backwards.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Hmm.
that's so cool. But yeah, I just love that song. But yeah, um, also like "Boy in the Bubble." The opener is actually pretty good. But
Hmm.
and all the songs are actually pretty good. Some are more, like I said, African influence for sure, which is different. But yeah, overall, yeah, excellent album from Paul Simon. One of my favorite songwriters, and like I said, Simon Garfunkel, I absolutely love them, and Simon is really great as well.
Okay, my fourth pick.
Garrett.
I had to do it. My fourth pick is Toto 4.
There you go.
Okay, so Toto is composed of world-class studio musicians. Like these guys have played on
Yeah.
hundreds of records. You got Steve Lukather, great guitar player. You got Jeff Porcaro, great drummer. And you got Steve Porcaro, his brother, on the keyboards. And then you got Bobby Kimball singing vocals. And then David Paik playing the bass. And man, these guys are just amazing at what they do. If you want another great example of how great they are, listen to their self-titled album from 1978. But this one's even better. This album, and I'm very sad to say, but it's very underrated because it's really overshadowed by a few of the hit songs on it.
Yeah.
And there are so many more good songs. I love those songs though. Rosanna is still my favorite song on the album.
Mm.
But there's a lot more to this album than Rosanna and Africa that you need to listen to in between the two great bookends to this album. Rosanna, like I mentioned before, is my favorite song on the album, but there's some really good horns, some cool piano, great outro solo by Steve Lukather, really cool jam, kind of like how he's like him and it's like him and the piano are doing a little duet. Like the piano does this cool solo, and then he plays, and then the piano's just it gets real jazzy at the end. And Make Believe is a really great song. I love that song. Oh man, it's been so long since I've listened to this album. I actually have to look at the track listing.
Next up is I Won't Hold You Back.
Oh my goodness, that's one of the best songs on the album.
Oh yeah, I love one of my favorite ballads.
Very underrated. I'm trying to find where is it? Where is it? There it is. Toto 4. I Won't Hold You Back. Amazing, great instrumentation by James Newton Howard, is actually the person who did the score for this particular song and conducted it. Really great. I love Steve Lukather's guitar solo. Again, great vocals here. It's just great. I'm saying great a lot, but that's just what this album
Yeah.
is. Good For You was another really good song. It's a Feeling. That's a really good song. Afraid of Love, very underrated song. I like the guitar riff on that. Man, the B-side is so great too. Lovers in the Night, another amazing song. I love the piano on that piano opening. And then Steve Lukather has two blistering guitar solos that'll nut your face off on this song. And then We Made It, another great song. And then Waiting for Your Love is a really funky song with some really high singing. And, well, you guessed it, there's also Africa on here,
Oh, yeah.
which Even though
good.
that song is very overplayed, I still really like that
Uh,
song. I don't think it's like my favorite song on the album, but it's still great. It's got a great groove. I like the catchy chorus. I like the
so
do do
good.
do 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 boom 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 ba-dum boom boom. So this definitely needs to be on the list of essential 80s albums
Oh
because
yeah,
it's really a master class in just great 80s pop and really
yeah,
how to make a great pop record, how to play well on an album, having like considering all these guys were studio musicians coming together and just making a great album. So check this one out, Toto 4.
yeah. One Grammy album of the year.
Yeah, and I'm very glad it did. I'm
Um,
almost tempted to say I like
80.
this better than Thriller.
I
I don't
like
know
it
if I'm,
more than Thriller, honestly.
I mean,
I mean, Thriller's a great album, but
coincidentally, Toto was the musicians who were the backing band for Thriller. Fun fact, but
Oh yeah, yeah,
I think I might like Toto 4 better.
yeah. I got to see Steve Lukather kind of in concert. He was in Ringo Starr's All Star Band,
Hey,
and so I got to hear him sing Africa and Rosanna and
oh wow.
uh, something. The line was it?
Oh,
Hold the
Hold the
line.
Line.
Yeah. So that was really cool hearing those three songs live from Steve Lukather. So yeah. All right. So we got Nick.
Keith M, you're gonna be mad at me. I'm gonna have to put a Who album. It's hard.
He hasn't been on the live stream.
Yeah. Who knows? Maybe he's quietly watching right now. But yeah, it's hard by the Who. Starts off strong on Athena. Really great song. It's Your Turn. Really great song. I wouldn't consider it to be the best song on the album, but it's pretty good. Cook's Country I really like. Title track I really like. Dangerous, which is really good. Eminence Front, which is easily the best track on the album. It's crazy, even 17 years after they made My Generation, that they're still able to make these amazing songs, especially this one. I've Known No War is great. One Life's Enough is amazing. One at a Time is great. Why Did I Fall for That is great.
That's actually my
Yeah,
favorite
man.
song on the album. Is Why Did I
Yeah.
Fall for That?
Yeah, it's amazing. A Man is a Man is great. Cry If You Want is a weaker song, but I'm not gonna let that ruin the album.
So is this is this prior to Keith Moon passing away or?
Oh, this
It
is
was
like
after.
it's like way after, yeah.
Okay. So I was like, is this towards the end of the Who or?
This is their last album with Entwistle.
Oh, okay.
I'd consider this to be their last like true album. They would release two albums one in 2006 and one in 2019, but it should just be called Pete Townsend and Roger Daltrey at that point.
Okay.
Either the two or the ... Who?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I felt like one of their last albums was like "Who Are You" or something, but I didn't know they
last
went
one
on.
with Keith Moon on it.
Is that the last one with Keith Moon?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't know they went beyond that. So that's interesting.
Yeah. Kenny Jones is a really good drummer.
But yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He does a good job at replacing Keith Moon.
Yeah. Good. We got some Who on here.
Yeah,
Who?
gotta have at least one Who album.
It's an eminence front.
Yeah, Kenny
Alright.
Jones is the guy who played drums on that one album. That you said it was your favorite part about I Get Stuck on Flake.
Yeah. He's,
So if you ever want to listen to this album, keep in
Yeah.
mind it's the same guy who did the drumming on
Right.
on Flake.
oh yeah. I get that. Yeah.
All right,
Yeah, Bryer?
so back to me. So what's gonna happen here is that I'm gonna do my next pick, and then I'm gonna leave for a little bit because I gotta feed my cats. So I'll
Okay.
leave for a little bit, then I'll come back after. All right,
Okay.
so I'm just gonna get this one out of the way. I'm just gonna showcase some metal. I'm wearing a shirt, so had to show them in this one.
Oh
'Cause
yeah.
they were like they're
Also,
probably the
I'm-
biggest. They're probably one of the biggest metal bands ever.
I'm gonna grab something to drink real quick.
You,
Alright.
you knew I wasn't gonna take it from you, so.
Yeah, no, I knew I was gonna be the only one. As you can see, the audience is starting to dwindle because
I know, it's
I
like
just
everybody
mentioned. Anyhow, but yeah, I'm gonna go with Number of the Beast.
What is it?
So the, the Number of the Beast.
Okay.
So this is their third studio album. So this is the first album with their current and most well known singer Bruce Dickinson, because they released two albums prior to this
I've
with
heard
a
that.
different singer.
Okay.
So they released two albums before this one. It was with a different singer, Paul Diano, and those two albums did really well. But for me, when Bruce joined the band, that's kind of when they became when they really became Iron Maiden. The songwriting is just phenomenal for a metal band because Steve Harris, who was the bass player and basically the leader of the band, he was one of the main songwriters, and he was
Yeah.
taking influences from books, poetry, movies, and just bringing it all into the lyrics. So it starts out with Invaders, just great opening track, very heavy, great guitar riffs all around, and Bruce already showing off his vocals because he has a very theatrical voice. He definitely has a more operatic sound to him, and people nickname him the air raid siren because when he screams, he sounds like a World War II air raid siren. So that's where he gets his name from. But then after that, you have Children of the Damned, great follow-up song, more mid-paced song, but again, just a good headbanger. The Prisoner is a really great one, just a song about some guy in prison and just kind of not having a good time in there, of course. Um, 22 Occasion Avenue. There are some songs I always forget how they go, but when I hear them again, I'm like, oh yeah, I like that song.
Yeah.
So it's one of those songs. Then you have the title track, and the thing about this album in particular that this got a lot of flack because many people said it was satanic,
Yeah.
worshiping the devil,
Yeah.
which is not true. I mean, the whole thing about Number of the Beast is that it was really based on a nightmare Steve Harris had one night, and just kind of wrote it around that. But you had some hit singles on here. I mean, I already said the Number of the Beast, but Run to the Hills, which is about the um, colonization of America, where the people of Europe were taking the lands of Native Americans. So they're also pretty good history. So if you if you need to study for a history test, go listen to some Iron Maiden because they'll have some for you. Yeah, that's a great song. Um, Gangland and Total Eclipse, another one of those songs I always forget how they go, but I always liked every time I hear them again. And then it closes out with my favorite Iron Maiden song, which is "Hallowed Be Thy Name," which is basically chronicalizes a man who is condemned to die for a crime he probably didn't commit, but he's being sent to the gallows pole, and the whole song is just him kind of coming to terms with it, and he's basically going through the 5 stages of grief as the song progresses. It's like very cool. So yeah, I mean, Iron Maiden were the band that got me into metal in general. So yeah, I had to give them a shout out. So as my fifth pick, and I will be right back. Until
All
then,
right.
enjoy my background.
All right.
Hangman, hangman, hangman.
Take me from the gallows pole, pole, pole.
Ad Finley says Kenny Jones has his own record label, puts a lot of his early stuff. FYI.
I've got to listen to Faces because a couple of the Small Faces members were from that are in that band. The only thing that made me not want to really check them out, well, the only thing that had made me not have as much interest is that Steve Marriott's not in the band. I prefer Humble Pie.
It does have Rod Stewart though.
Yeah, it has Rod Stewart, has Kenny Jones, Ronnie Lane. I don't know if Ian McLagan's
It's
in that band.
basically the Faces are to the Small Faces what Led Zeppelin is to the Yardbirds.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
All right.
Yeah, I should definitely check out the Faces. I don't think I'm gonna like them nearly as much as the Small Faces, but I feel like I'll respect them.
All right. Should I go on with mine, or do I need to wait for Bryer?
I gotta go to sleep, so the sooner this video's over, the better.
Okay. I'll go on. All right. No kidding around. This album has to be on here. It's the best-selling album of all time, and it is Thriller by Michael Jackson. Comes out in 1982. I believe it wins album of the year sometime around there, maybe 82. Um, and I'm not the biggest Michael Jackson fan just because I think he's kind of a weirdo. So, like, I'm not a person who listens to his stuff, but you can't deny this album. Like I said, it's the best selling album of all time, not just the 80s, but it was a huge, huge seller. It has some of his biggest hits of all time on here. Michael Jackson, one of the greatest, I mean, best selling artists of all time, greatest entertainers. This was definitely a time when he was really starting to. This I know he had a solo album, I believe, from before this. But this was really when he really kind of blew up. I think major. He started doing the moonwalk. He was singing Billie Jean. Did the moonwalk on TV. Blew everybody's mind. And I remember watching him on TV when I was a kid, and just like blew my mind. His dancing. He did the whole hat, jacket, one glove thing. Um, yeah, it was huge. Obviously, Thriller is a huge music video. One of the longest like ever, and has a whole dance craze behind it. Beat It, probably his biggest song of all time. Uh, he's a. I would listen to it. I would say it's. I think it's an R&B type album, but yet it has pop and rock in it as well. Like Beat It has some really good guitar on it. I want to say Halen played on it, if I remember right. Eddie Van Halen, maybe.
He did the guitar solo. The rhythm parts were done by Steve Lukather from Toto.
Right. Okay. Yes. So you got Steve Lukather. Yeah, who's another great guitar player. So yeah, some good. I mean, the instrumentals on that is so good on Beat It, and that was probably the first Michael Jackson song I ever heard in my life when I was a kid. Was that Beat It was everywhere. I remember that being a big thing, and this was in the '90s. I mean, so it was not like new at that time. Um, Better Be Starting Something, pretty good starter to the album. And my favorite song is actually Human Nature. I think is actually a really good song. It's got a really good melody to it. Maybe an underrated song of his, but yeah, absolutely huge album. Had to put it on the list, so there it is, Thriller.
Thriller, Thriller night.
I think it was Jones did the producing. What's his name?
Yeah, Quincy Jones.
Quincy Jones.
Also,
Yeah.
also Paul McCartney did a duet on that album.
Yes,
He did.
Paul McCartney duet, which I was.
And he hits a really low note.
Because Michael Jackson did 2 songs for Paul McCartney's album as well, but yeah.
Say.
And
Yeah.
and then what? How does Michael Jackson repay him? He buys the Beatles song rights.
He buys the.
Why would you? Why
man.
would you repay Paul McCartney like that, Michael
I know.
Jackson?
Did him dirty there.
Bryer is not here. So I will talk about the artist that he's not a huge fan of, or one that he's not as big of a fan of. I'll say.
Okay.
Let me just find the album real quick. We are going to 1984 with Bruce Springsteen and Born in the USA.
Born USA, good.
Now,
Yeah, it's a great album.
here's the thing, is that Born in the USA, the song, is actually one of my least favorite songs on the album. Like, it's a great album, and Born in the USA is still a really good song. It's just I don't like it nearly as much as pretty much every other song on the album.
I do like that song.
You know what's funny, Garrett, is that it's like the opposite of Piano Man. It's like Piano Man, the song's amazing, but the rest of the song isn't nearly as on par with that song. But it's the opposite on this album. I agree.
I think they should have called the album Dancing in the Dark.
That's
if I'm honestly speaking.
That's my favorite song on the album.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, good song.
Either that or Cover Me would have been a cool name for the album too.
Yeah.
Or I'm on Fire. Like so many other great songs that I think should have been the title track. Glory Days, My Hometown.
The album cover's really iconic though, with the American flag.
The album cover kind of reminds me of the opposite of Sticky Fingers. Because like Sticky Fingers is Mick Jagger's crotch, and then Born in the USA is Bruce Springsteen's butt. So like it
Right, yeah, it is, yeah.
But Born in the USA, even though it's not my favorite song on the album, it's still great. It's a very misunderstood song. Most people think of it as like a USA, like we're proud to be American song.
Yeah.
It's actually about like how messed up the Vietnam War was.
Right.
Cover Me is a great song. Darlington County, Working on the Highway, Downbound Train. I'm on Fire is another one of my favorite songs on the album, even though it's really short, but it's really great. No Surrender, I'm Going Down, Glory Days. My favorite song on here is Dancing in the Dark, and then it ends with My Hometown.
Yeah, super essential.
I'm not even a fan, and I still think, yeah, that probably should be on there.
Yeah, lots of the Boss's biggest hits on here, and some of his most
Yeah.
underrated stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't like it as much as Born to Run, but still, check this album
Yeah.
out.
I always hear Born to Run, Born USA, and Nebraska, I think, are like the three big ones.
Also, Darkness on the Edge of Town is great too.
Okay.
No, it's actually a really good album. Okay, my number 5. Going back to Michael Jackson, I feel like this album, I know it's a very popular album by him, but I don't think it's nearly as appreciated as Thriller, and I think it's a crime. And that would be the Bad album.
Okay. Yeah.
I always preferred it over Thriller. The tracks on it I always thought was better. The title track's amazing. The Way You Make Me Feel, amazing.
Oh, that's a good song. Yeah.
Speed Demon's great. Librarian Girl I love. Just Good Friends. Another Part of Me. Man in the Mirror. Like,
Oh, that's a great song.
I mean, like, how could like an album with Bad, The Way You Make Me Feel, and Man in the Mirror could like not be as appreciated as Thriller? I
And
don't know.
Smooth Criminal.
Exactly. I was just mentioning
Good.
that. I Just Can't Stop Loving You is great. Dirty Diana's great. Smooth Criminal. Oh my god. And then the last track, Leave Me Alone. Like, this album is so good, and I think this album doesn't get nearly enough recognition as it deserves. I know it's a popular album because
Yeah,
it's Michael Jackson, but I don't think people people are like, oh, Bad, like they do with Thriller. So
I need to give
I-
that album. I need to give that album a listen. I don't think I've actually heard it.
Yeah, I need to listen to that. Yeah.
you gotta check out the whole album.
Yeah.
I prefer it over Thriller, but I could see why. I could see if you guys don't agree with that. I could see why, but yeah, that's just my.
I mean,
preference.
I've definitely heard the singles from it, but now I'm interested to check out the whole album.
Yeah, the whole album's great.
So I listened to Off the Wall, and that album was great.
Yeah, Off the
I'm
Wall.
not
That was the,
crazy about Off the Wall as
Off the Wall is Michael Jackson's disco album.
that was like.
Yeah, I like the singles off the album, but I'm not as crazy of the album.
Yeah, I feel like Thriller is like the last. I want to say the last album where he was still black, and then you get to Bad, and then he all of a sudden his whole image totally changed, and
Oh.
he looks
Definitely
totally
more
different.
Tanner.
All of a sudden he was white and he had like a small nose. It was I don't know. It was something. And long black hair. I don't know.
Oh,
Oh no.
looks like this is our show now.
We had an opposite of the Small Faces video.
Now Jason knows how I feel.
There he is.
There.
There we go.
All right, Bryer, you came back just in time,
Yep, and I was watching still.
so you won't repeat us.
Oh,
Yeah, so I
okay.
won't-
So you heard what album did I pick then?
You born in the USA.
Okay. I
Probably
wanted
my
to
favorite album of all time.
I was gonna do that as my next pick in a different album before, but because you weren't there, like I want you to be here when I talk about the next album because I want to talk about this next album with everybody here.
Okay.
All right. Well, it's good that you all talked about Michael Jackson, who is, of course, known as the King of Pop.
Yeah.
But what about the Queen of Pop?
Okay.
Tina Turner? Oh
No, well,
wait, no, she was the Queen of Rock and Roll.
she was the Queen of Rock and Roll,
think it's-
but
Yeah.
but yeah, the Queen of Pop. Usually, the title usually goes to Madonna.
Oh, Madonna.
Madonna. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
People tend to forget because Madonna was huge in
She was
the
huge.
'80s.
Yeah.
She was one of the biggest stars at that
Oh,
time.
yeah.
And this album was kind of like her real breakthrough because her first album did pretty well, had some solid songs, solid hits on here. But this was produced by Nile Rodgers, who, of course, with Chic, and has produced David Bowie and countless other artists.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, this came out with so many hit songs.
What's the album?
Like a Virgin.
Like a Virgin. Okay.
Yeah. And also pretty controversial for the time, kind of scandalous.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just it's like I know there's definitely a lot of people who aren't Madonna fans, but again, she's made some great pop music. I've always loved Material Girl. Just the great beats, very catchy, and the music video is pretty good. Because she does a whole homage to Marilyn Monroe. Um, Angels, a great song to follow it up. Of course, you got the title song, which of course got huge because of the Yankovic bump, of course. But
Yeah, Yankovic,
yeah,
like I said,
yeah,
Like a
exactly.
like a
surgeon,
surge.
cutting for the very first time.
Yeah, and actually, and it was that part they did get that part true. Madonna did request Weird Al to do that song, so yeah, so that was fun. Let's see, it's hard to read now. Over and Over is pretty good. Uh, Dress You Up, that was another single release, and I think that's probably my favorite song on the album. Honestly, like again, it's so upbeat, it's so catchy, and yeah, I just love it about it. It has a great little guitar solo in it. It's not too crazy, but it definitely fits the song. You got some ballads like Shooby Doo, which is a nice kind of more softer ballad. Let's see, let me turn the lights. Hard to see now. It's getting dark in my room. Hold on a sec. There we go. I can see. Um, yeah, Pretenders is pretty good. Then he closes out with Stay, and so yeah, this got plenty of rewards in that time, and definitely put Madonna on the map. So yeah, I've got to mention her.
That's the first big one, then, right?
Yeah, this was like
I
the
feel,
first really big one.
I feel like a Virgin was the first big song that I remember, anyways.
Yeah, I think her first like big hit was Holiday off her first album.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do think about that image of her in that
I
wedding
mean,
dress
yeah.
rolling around the stage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow. I didn't know if we
Yeah.
were going to hit on Madonna because I don't have her on my list, but she's definitely one of the biggest artists of the 80s. So I'm glad you got her because
Yeah.
I know her hit songs, but I'm not familiar with her albums. But
I mean, I only know two. I only know two albums of her, honestly.
yeah, I was looking at like number one, like people that had number one songs, and she had a ton of number one singles. I mean, it's insane if you look at how many number one singles she had.
Mm.
I had no idea she had that many number ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, she dominated there. All right. For my next pick, going for Madonna, I'm going to hit on another really great female artist. And this is an album I just heard. I just listened to this the other day, and I love it. And so it's on my list now, and it wasn't before. And one of the greatest singers of all time, Whitney Houston.
Oh.
And her debut album, Whitney Houston, in 1980.
Okay.
Yeah, no, we got to have Whitney Houston on here. She was everywhere in the 80s.
Yeah, and I'm when I grew up in the 90s, she was considered the greatest singer. I remember everybody, you couldn't, not talk about great singers without talking about Whitney Houston. Of course, when I was growing up, it was the Bodyguard soundtrack, absolutely humongous, with I Will Always Love You. And that was on the radio all the time. But this album from '85. I think I was listening to this the other day just to kind of catch up on some '80s albums I haven't listened to, and I was like, wow, this is a really good debut album. I was really impressed by it. And Whitney Houston, I just love her voice. And I was, like I said, I was never a big listening to Whitney Houston album, so this is kind of, I need to get through more of her albums now, especially since they came out with a biopic this last year that I saw.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Which I actually kind of enjoyed because it was very interesting because she had such a tragic, kind of life in a way. So I really feel for her because I remember, growing up with her and her tragic death and all that was, very sad to me. But yeah, like I said, her voice is so good. I mean, and it's it's really a poppy album. And man, she sounds good on these pop songs. Some are very upbeat. Absolutely love How Will I Know is probably my favorite song on here. I just absolutely love it. It's an upbeat pop song. It sounds absolutely great. I mean, these are songs that there's a lot of radio songs on here. Saving All My Love for You, really great song. That was on the radio a lot. And also Greatest Love of All, one of her biggest ones probably. So I was kind of shocked when I was listening to this. I was like, wow, because sometimes I'll listen to a debut album and it'll be terrible, and it will take a couple albums before an artist will just really finally get the right sound or get the
The
right,
Holly.
maybe they get the right songwriters. I don't know. But she hit right away. I mean, they got. I mean, these are some of her best songs. It's on her first album, and so, but the whole album I think is actually really good throughout. But there's definitely those are the three big ones on there. But yeah, uh, definitely have to recommend Whitney Houston if you haven't listened to her. If you like pop music, I recommend this album, Whitney
You
Houston.
have to be living under a rock to never have listened to Whitney Houston before.
Yeah.
I know, right?
Maybe an album, you would say, but yeah, you have to be living under a rock to never have listened to her. I'd
I'm
say
Right.
Whitney
glad.
Houston is the 80s as Stevie Wonder was the 70s in terms of like just just making great music, like great soul music. Not soul music, but like
I'm glad that Jason put that on his list and that Bryer put Madonna on those lists because they definitely need to be on the list. I just
Yeah,
don't have those on my list because I haven't listened to either of those albums,
yeah,
and I guess those aren't quite as much like the style of music I listen to, but I'm
Right.
not gonna deny how amazing these artists are, making these great pop records that definitely should be on this top 50 essential albums list. So I'm really glad you guys have that on there because
yeah.
I'm bringing the pop rock on here, and so we need a couple of great 80s pop artists on here. Let's see who's next.
Garrett.
It's me. Okay, this album is an album that I just listened to about a week ago, and oh my
really?
goodness, it has changed my life. How great this album is. This album is, I would say, this artist is the spiritual successor to Pink Floyd. That's how good this is. Have you ever heard of the Alan Parsons Project?
I've heard of it. Don't know their music.
Okay, Breyer's probably heard the album, but okay. All of you guys, homework for this week.
Okay.
Please listen to Eye in the Sky by the Alan Parsons Project.
Okay.
This is one of the best albums of the 80s right here. It is so good. I can't believe how good this album is. It's insane. And the reason that I listened to the album is that, because I had heard Alan Parsons was a studio engineer. He got his job at Abbey Road Studios actually as like the tea guy who would bring tea to the Beatles. And then eventually they let him be an assistant sound engineer on Abbey Road, and he went on to be the head sound engineer for Dark Side of the Moon. So, that's already a great track record there. But then after that he went and made his own band, which was kind of like Steely Dan, and then it was a studio project where it was just him and one other guy who hired studio musicians for every album and song. But this album right here, amazing. So I'd heard that he had worked on Dark Side of the Moon. And so, liking Pink Floyd, I'm like, okay, I need to give this album a listen, but I'm going to hold it off till later. So, while I'm at the record store a few weeks back, they throw this album on. And that, I hear that first song, Eye in the Sky, and I go, what is this? I look and I see that they're playing Eye in the Sky, and I'm like, okay, it's time to listen to that album. And I was not disappointed at all. So, technically, even though I kind of grouped them as the same song, technically it opens up with Sirius, even though I group Sirius and Eye in the Sky as the same song, because it feels more like just an instrumental intro to Eye in the Sky. But you've probably heard Sirius before somewhere, at a sporting event most likely. Jason, you lived in the 90s. It was the Chicago Bulls intro theme.
Okay.
You know, the doo-doo-doo, ba-doo-doo-doo, doo-doo-doo.
Oh yeah.
I first heard that as the song in Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs whenever they were opening up the town.
Oh, yeah,
That's where I remembered it from. But it's an epic instrumental song. And then it just goes straight into Eye in the Sky, which, oh my goodness, this song is amazing. And the guitar on Sirius as well. There's a short little guitar solo that's incredible. And then the guitar on Eye in the Sky as well, really great. It this song sounds the whole album just sounds kind of like, it sounds more Pink Floyd-y than what Pink Floyd was doing in the 80s.
Yeah, I could see that.
like this song right here is just absolutely amazing. I love the keyboards. I love the vocals. I just love everything about this song. Children of the Moon is another amazing song. Gemini, that's another amazing song. And then you get Silence and I, which is one of my favorite songs on the album. It has all this epic orchestration in it. It's insane. The B-side starts with You're Gonna Get Your Fingers Burned, which is probably the poppiest song on the album. It's a really great song. And then you have Psychobabble, which is a really underrated song. I really like that one. You got Mama Gama, which is an instrumental, another really great song. Even though it's just an instrumental, it's a really cool instrumental. Step by Step, another amazing song. This is like a perfect album. And then probably my second favorite song on the album after Eye in the Sky is Old and Wise, which is sung by Colin Blunstone from the Zombies. And it has more really amazing instrumentation on it, like lots of orchestra. Really great album. If you guys have never heard this album, please go listen to this album. It's so great.
Okay. Do you know it, Bryer? Oh,
I
you
have
got
it. I have it. So
You've been holding
No,
it.
Bryer just like collecting music he's never heard.
Yeah.
so yeah, I agree. It's a really good album. It's been a while since I've heard it. I think I'm gonna listen to this again.
Please listen to that. That album is, again, I say it's the spiritual successor to Pink Floyd. Like, it's so good. It's like, basically, think if Dark Side of the Moon was made in the 80s and it didn't have like the concept thing behind it. That's what it sounds like. Lots of like mellow, vibey sounds like that. Great guitar playing, and Alan Parsons engineered it, so you know it's going to sound great. Although, funny story, when I first listened to it, there was a mastering error on iTunes apparently, and Psychobabble was very loud and distorted, almost like they turned it up. And I thought that's the way it was supposed. I thought it was an artistic choice, and like,
Yeah.
I didn't like that song at all because it was just loud and everything sounded distorted. And then I listened to it like on I opened up YouTube because I'm like, I want to see what other people say about this song. And everyone says it's amazing, and then I push play and I'm like, oh, it sounds normal. So then I found another version of it on iTunes. It was like, oh, and that's how it's one of my favorite songs on the album. But it was interesting that the first time I listened to it was really loud and distorted.
That's a cool discovery.
Yeah.
Well,
And
my sixth album on what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say that like I feel like it was really popular when it came out, but I don't hear anybody talk about this album.
Yeah.
Like it was almost like stumbling upon El Dorado or the Pot of Gold or something. It's like nobody knows about this, and like I found it. It's like just because somebody at the record store just happened to play it. maybe
That's how I
look into
felt.
it.
That's how I felt with Billy Nichols' "Would You Believe" album. I'm like, wow, like this very obscure album from 1968, and I only found it because of a YouTube channel. Bryer will attest to it. It's a really great album.
Yep, it's pretty good.
Okay, my number.
Sorry, I keep saying things. You'll get "Eye in the Sky" stuck in your head for like the next.
I have it in my head right
after.
now.
I'm the eye in the sky. I'm looking at you. In the background, it was I can read your mind. Okay, now you can go, Nick.
Thank you. I'm gonna be very brief with my choice. My next choices. The rest of my choices because I want to get to bed.
I'm starting work at 6 a.m. tomorrow, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I gotta wake up at 3:30 tomorrow. So.
Oh,
yeah.
that's even earlier.
Oh boy.
Yeah, and it's like 10:16 where I live.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I want to just say all of them, but I'm afraid I'm gonna take some people's things. I don't know. My number 6 though is gonna be GNR Lies. It starts off with 4 songs that are live, but they're really just studio tracks with live crowd noises in the background. Reckless Life is great. Nice Boys is rocking. Move to the City is probably my favorite song from the hard rocking live stuff. Mama Kin's my least favorite. It's a cover of an Aerosmith song. It's all right. Side 2 though is where to me why it's my favorite album of theirs. Patience is brilliant acoustic number. Everyone's heard that song. Use a little patience in the rocking acoustic guitar solo in the middle of it. It's really good. Used to Love Her is pretty funny.
Will you believe me if I said I've actually never heard Patience?
Really,
I haven't.
you should check it out. It's an
I
amazing song.
probably should. I hear it's very different from Guns N'
Yeah,
Roses' usual
Oh,
stuff.
it's an acoustic ballad.
my favorite song on the album, and
I'll
I
check it
bet
out.
Bryer would agree with me on that.
Yeah, it's my favorite. It's probably my favorite. I don't have the album, but that's probably would be my favorite song.
I own it on cassette and CD, so
You
I
know
would
you
own
like
it
an
on
album when you have it on cassette.
yeah. I saw it at a record store, and I'm like, you know what? This is my favorite Guns N' Roses album. I have to own it some way or another. And there was like a little portable cassette player. I'm like, I'm gonna buy both of those. I need to have this in physical form. I have to.
I need to
So
get Abbey Road on cassette and 8-track so I can say that I own it in every. Oh, I can't get reel to reel though. I just want to be able to say I own Abbey Road in every format.
yeah, I want to be able to say that with the Who Sell Out. Okay, Used to Love Her is pretty funny. It's basically about a person who killed. It's basically about Axl Rose killing his dog because she was very sick, and used to love her but had to kill her. You're Crazy, which Bryer was talking about that with the Appetite Just for Destruction, but it's the acoustic version. I much prefer the acoustic version. The hard version's good, but the acoustic version's much better. One in a Million. Very controversial lyrics, but yeah, even Brier's like, yeah,
Brian.
I have,
Yeah.
yeah,
I've never heard that song, so I have no idea.
Yeah, I know.
yeah. I wouldn't. I would if
Let me just
Let's
say,
not
is
let's
it,
not get into that. We won't get into it.
I'm gonna only ask one question. It's just a yes or no question. Is it more controversial than Dr. Jimmy?
yes.
Oh boy, well then I don't want to
Oh
know.
boy.
I was gonna say if you didn't like Dr. Jimmy because of the line that's in that song, stay far away from One in a Million because
Yeah, there's
there's a
tons
certain
of
word.
lines
There's a certain
that did not age well.
Yeah, there's two words that he says in the song that I'm like, oh, what the heck, Axel? What the heck?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say it, but if you
Yeah, don't say it.
no say if you don't like you listen to it before, Jason.
No.
I'm starting to get the feeling one of them starts with F.
Well, I'm not gonna say it, but
Yeah.
like I said, if you don't like Dr. Jimmy because of the lyrics, then you're definitely not gonna like One in a Million for the lyrics.
Okay.
I'm just gonna leave it at that. But musically, it's a great song. But yeah,
What's the name of the album?
Lies.
GM Lies. It has a cover of a newspaper.
G Wise? What?
GNR.
GNR.
GNR?
Yeah.
G.
Yeah, very interesting title.
It's basically just their initials.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
All right. Okay, back to me.
All right, back to you, Brian.
All right, so when Jason brought up Whitney Houston, I was gonna panic because is he gonna take the one I was gonna say?
Oh yeah.
But no, he didn't. I'm also gonna talk about Whitney Houston.
Oh, okay.
Wanna dance
Hey.
with somebody?
Yep, this is her second album.
Second album. Okay.
Yeah. Did you listen to this one yet, Jason?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. This is my favorite of her albums. I mean, as of now, I've always, again, kind of like Jason says, I've always liked Whitney Houston. I've always loved her voice. Like, definitely one of the great singers of that era. I mean, starts out with probably her most well-known song, "I Want to Dance." Well, her second most well-known song, "I Want to Dance with Somebody."
Yeah.
Just a great pop song. Just the lonely talking again, kind of a more slower song, but again, her voice just carries it. Love Will Save the Day, definitely the most dated sounding, but I still kind of like it. Didn't We Almost Have It All? It's kind of another little bit of a slower ballad, but very good. So emotional, good dance number. Where You Are, that's one of my favorites of her ballads. I've always loved that song. Loves Contact Sports, good. You're Still My Man. For the Love of You, that's a really good song. Another fantastic ballad with Where Do Broken Hearts Go?
Mhm.
Then it closes out with "I Know Him So Well," which is actually a duet with her grandmother, Chrissy
Yeah,
Houston. Yeah,
Hmm.
so it's kind of nice to bring in
That's
some
cool.
because her family is like
Yeah,
pretty big in the music. Because I know she's cousins with Diane Warwick.
yeah.
So yeah, it's a huge family tree. So yeah, great. I've always loved this album, so had to mention this one.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I definitely. Yeah, those are the two. Those are the two '80s albums for Whitney Houston.
Yeah.
Because one came out in '85, I think the other one '87.
Mm-hmm.
I was listening to them last night when I was at work, actually. um, that's cool. That I hit the first one. You got the second one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know when I said Whitney Houston, you kind of looked worried on your face. I was like, oh no. All right, for my next pick, where are we at? 7. Okay. I heard this album for the first time a couple months ago and absolutely loved it. And so it's now on my list, and that is Invisible Touch by Genesis. It came out in 1986. And
Love that album.
this is all because of, I guess, Garrett putting it as a ranking album that we did together on Garrett's channel, Sound Up Studios. And I hadn't listened to any Genesis albums before. And got to do this one, and I thought it was a really great pop album. I love Phil Collins. He's one of my favorite artists. Probably one of my favorite in the '80s for sure. Besides the solo work, and then now I heard this, and I was like, "Wow, this is like his solo work." I really like it. In fact, might be my favorite of his stuff that he's done. Phil Collins, but yeah, Invisible Touch, great opener there. Self-titled song. Land of Confusion, really great song, really catchy. My favorite is In Too Deep, one of the great ballads. And Phil Collins I love his vocal work on that. And I love his ballad work. He's so good with that. And then I also really enjoyed Throwing It All Away was my other kind of, I think it was another ballad on there that I really liked. But there's some other really good Tonight.
I heard Throwing It All Away at a store today.
Really?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I saw that.
Yeah, I remember that. But yeah, it's really excellent pop album. I haven't hit. It's only Genesis albums I know, so it's my favorite Genesis album right now. But I don't know if that'll stay. But
Jason, you need to check out Duke next. That's
okay.
That's where you need to go next with either that or their self-titled 1983 album.
Yeah, or Foxtrot or something.
Maybe not Foxtrot.
Please don't go to
that's
Peter
too
Gabriel
far.
yet. And before you go to Peter Gabriel, listen to Trick of the Tail. That one is a good bridge between Phil Collins, because it's Phil Collins singing, but it sounds like the Peter Gabriel years.
Yeah, I want to get more into Genesis. That's definitely a band I'm kind of curious about because of their different.
You know what? I would actually say start with Invisible Touch and just work your way backwards.
But Invisible Touch is a great starter.
Self-titled, Abacab, Duke. Then there were 3, Wind and Wuthering, Trick of the Tail, Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, Selling England by the Pound, Foxtrot, and then you can stop at Nursery Crime because Phil Collins isn't on the first 2 albums. Just start work your way backwards. Probably be a good way to do it.
Okay. I got Norn. Hi, Norn.
Hello.
And he mentions Depeche Mode.
Ooh, Depeche Mode. Okay, yeah, they were starting to get well known by that point.
I've heard of them. Don't know much. But...
Yeah, I know. I only know a few songs.
All right. Now on to Garrett.
Okay. Should I go with an album that I think you guys are going to like, or one that I think is essential that you guys are going to be like, why? Or you like, okay, I get that, but I don't like that band.
We'll see.
Both of them are going to be on my list, but it's which one comes first.
Okay.
Which one?
Probably the second one.
The one, okay. ZZ Top.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to represent Texas here.
Yeah.
I know a lot of you guys have said that ZZ Top wasn't your favorite, but my roommate bought the Eliminator album recently. We played it on the stereo, and that album is very good. And it definitely needs to be on the essential albums of the 80s list.
They're popular.
Oh,
I have to give you that. So
Let me pull up the track listing. There we go. It starts off with "Give Me All Your Loving," which I think the first time I heard that song was in the Santa Claus with Tim Allen. It plays during the montage scene when they're like getting ready to like deliver the presents, which I think is funny. "Got Me Under Pressure" is another really great song, great second track. My favorite song on the album is "Sharp Dressed Man" because
Yeah.
it's a really killer song. I know this is a very different ZZ Top than you're used to if you've heard like Trace Hombres, but it's kind of naturally what I think their sound would have evolved into in the 80s.
Yeah.
And they, from what I heard, a lot of people are like, oh, they just go full on synthesize. It still sounds like ZZ Top. They're just using the technology of the time to add to their sound, honestly speaking.
Yeah.
I Need You Tonight and I Got the Six. I think those are okay songs. She's Got Legs is better in the album version than the single version because I heard it on the radio and it's more synthesizers, but if you hear it on the album, it's more guitar driven, even though there is still some synthesizers, and there's some really great Billy Gibbons guitar licks in there that get really buried in the single mix, so the album version's better. Thug, great bass on that song. I love the bass on that. That's probably one of my favorite songs on the album. TV Dinners is hilarious. I couldn't stop laughing whenever I heard it. It's great. The SZZ Top wrote a song about TV dinners, about like defrosting them and microwaving, like all the different kinds of TV dinners there are. Dirty Dog, If I Could Only Flag Her Down, and Bad Girl. So
I mean, to be fair, the Who made a song about Heinz baked beans, so
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
But if you like Texas blues, but you also like 80s pop, they really shouldn't go together, but they do in this album. It's really weird.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good choice. Yeah, I do like this album quite a bit. I do like their early stuff a little bit more, but I can't deny there's some great songs on here.
I think Trace Hombres is probably that's the only other album I've heard, but that's the one I like the most, but this is, I can definitely see why this is their most popular album, because it was almost as good as Trace Hombres.
Yeah, the album was huge when it came out.
Well, Sharp Dressed Man, that's all over the road.
Oh yeah. That was like the theme song to Duck Dynasty.
That's right.
When that show was huge.
Yeah.
But
they even got ZZ Top in their series finales, from what I've heard.
Yeah, they
really?
did. And ZZ Top, I can't believe that ZZ Top, like, it's the same three members up until like the bass player died, and they're big in like every decade, big in the 70s, big in the 80s, and they were also big in the 90s. They were in like Back to the Future 3.
Yep.
And I just can't believe that they managed to stay relevant for that long.
Yeah.
Well, there's a certain album that I'm thinking of that kind of is the same with the certain band that survived 3 decades of music, and I'll get into it, but that'll be a little later. But this next album is the very last album by this band that we've been talking about. Well, I've been talking about a lot, and that's the Who, and it's their follow up to Who Are You? Pardon me, and that will be Face Dances, and that's their first album with Kenny Jones as their drummer. Face Dances, and came out in '81. And hit single on the album, "You Better Bet," is a great opener. It still shows how great they're making music at that time. "Don't Let Go of the Code" is really good. "The Quiet One" I really enjoy. A great end whistle track. "Did You Steal the Money" is alright. Same with "Cashy Cashy." Like those 2 songs I can care less for. That's the only 2 songs that are really making me like. It's a good album, but I wouldn't consider it to be like the best, but it has enough great songs for me to consider it to be essential, though. "Daily Records" is really good. "You," which is another amazing whistle track, and the last track on the album, which I really enjoy, is "Another Tricky Day."
All right.
Yeah, last time you're gonna be hearing me talk about the Who.
Nothing in the 90s. Yeah, there was
Yeah.
They don't have any '90s records.
no.
No. Okay. Well, it's back to me.
Number 8.
All right. So I'm done with my pop for now. Going back to my hard rock. So I'm going to talk about some Whitesnake. It's not the
right.
one it's not that one behind me. The one I'm pointing at. It's not that one.
Uh-oh, here we go again.
Here I go again.
Where you go?
Indeed. Yep, we're going with White's 1987. Came out in 1987. So yeah, I've always loved Whitesnake. I mean, I love pretty much all the eras. I like the early bluesy hard rock stuff, and I love their hair metal stuff, which is this
That's their
one.
self-titled album, or
Yeah, self-titled or 1987, which one? It doesn't really matter.
okay.
But yeah, I mean, really the big thing I've always loved is one, David Coverdale's vocals. Like he's just one. He is one of my favorite male vocalists ever. Even going back to his days in Deep Purple, like I've always loved his style. Very bluesy, but again has that great gruffness to it. But the second thing about this particular album is the guitar playing. So John Sykes is the name of the guitar player, and his guitar playing is so amazing, so incredible. I mean, starts out with "Still the Nights." I mean, that song alone, like the riff on that song is just, it's one of my favorite Whitesnake songs ever. "Give Me All Your Love," another fantastic song, good hard rocking. "Bad Boys," love it. But then they also have their sensitive side as well, because you have the big hits and the ballad "Is This
Yeah.
Love," which of
Yeah.
course is pretty popular. And then it follows up with the other big hit on here, which of course is "Here I Go Again," the 87 version, because they actually did this song on an earlier album in 82, I believe. But it was kind of a minor hit, but they redid it for
I
this
can't
album.
listen to the original version of that song. Like the re-recorded version is so much better. I can't even listen to the original version.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. It's very different. Yeah, the original is very different. I mean, the only good thing about the original has John Lord on the keyboards, which is kind of cool.
Cool.
But yeah, the 87 is the pretty much the definitive version. Straight for the heart. Goes back to the hard rock stuff. "Looking for Love," "Children of the Night," another great riff on that one. "You're Gonna Break My Heart Again," "Crying in the Rain." Then it closes out with "Don't Turn Away." If you were to get this album, whether on vinyl or on CD, there is a difference between the UK and the US, because what I have here has the UK track listing. The US track listing is very different. It's the same songs, but they just rearranged the songs for some reason. I don't know why. But yeah, that's gonna be my next pick, Whitesnake.
I love that album cover. That's
Which one?
that one you showed.
Okay.
1987.
Okay, good. I thought you were talking about the one behind me, but no.
Because I know you've showed that quite a bit on your channel, or I've seen you talk about that. I need to listen to it because you keep talking about it.
Yeah.
Here we go.
That'll be interesting.
All right. For my next pick, I am going with the only other album I have in my my collection. That is the Traveling.
Handle it with care, Jason.
You're good with the puns today, Garrett.
Yeah, but maybe I've reached the end of the line.
You're in the end of the line.
Yeah, just be careful. It's a dirty world out there.
But I'm going with Volume 1. Traveling Wilburys Volume 1. They only have two albums, Volume 1 and Volume 3.
They skipped
no
2.
Volume 2. But I got this from Adam from What the Gym. We did a CD exchange, and he got me this for the CD exchange. It has both albums and a DVD in it. Anyways, Traveling Wilburys is I've heard of them. Didn't really know that much about them. Never really listened to their music before until Adam got me this, and then of course I listened to it. Of course, it's how can you not be fascinated by? It's the greatest on paper. It's the greatest all-star band of all time. I still say Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young is my favorite kind of super group, just because I felt like they were more involved. While this was like they kind of came together, and then they didn't do any touring together, I don't think, or they kind of had their own bands, their own thing. They had their own albums going on, and they kind of came together and put this together, and it worked though. It's just, to me, it's kind of
album seems more like just like a couple of friends in the music business coming together for a day, recording an album.
They just came in for a day pretty much and recorded an album. It's crazy. I mean, it's really all because of George Harrison. It was really his idea. He was kind of the mastermind behind getting everybody together and doing this collaboration. And basically, him and Jeff Lynne put it all together. And but I mean, it's just crazy just to think they got Bob Dylan, they got Jeff, of course, George Harrison, Jeff Lynne, Tom Petty, and then the late great. Well, there's a couple late greats there, but then um, I forgot his name, but
Roy Orbison.
Roy Orbison, who died right after they made the album, and they made the music video, and they couldn't have him in there because he died before that. I mean, so just crazy that they got him in to make this album just right before he died, which is really cool. And yeah, so it's just a legend, singers and songwriters put together. But I still think it's a really good album. I think it was even nominated for Album of the Year that the year came out. But as you said, Handle with Care, really great song. Last Night's actually my favorite song on here. I absolutely love that song. That's a song that gets in my head when I listen to it. Not Alone Anymore, Roy Orbison, great on that. What I love about this album is everybody kind of takes their turns, lead singing and all that. And so you kind of tell when you're listening, like you can tell who's it is, especially Orbison. He has such a iconic voice. So I love when he comes in on Not Alone Anymore. Congratulations, kind of Bob Dylan. And it's the vocals are terrible, but yeah, I like the song because it's kind of catchy. Congratulations. And it's like totally off key, but I'm like, oh, so I love it.
It's Bob Dylan.
It's Bob Dylan. But yeah, End of the Line, the last song, another just absolutely great song that I'd say if you know any of the songs, probably End of the Line is the one they made a music video out of and made a hit out of. Maybe Handle with Care. I think that was another one that maybe was a radio hit, more of a George Harrison stuff. And sometimes they would take turns on the song anyways, but it's just so cool that you get all their voices on these songs and they all kind of take turns. And it's still a really good album. I'm like really kind of surprised how much I enjoyed it. And so that's why I have to put it on this list. All right, Garrett.
All right. Well, it looks like you guys are so far away from me. So far, I just can't sleep. That's I'm gonna go with 1985's. That's a bad pun. 1985's "Brothers in Arms" by Dire Straits.
Okay, all right.
This is another one of the best sounding albums of all time. Mark Knopfler really wanted this thing to be cutting edge when it came to the technology used to record it. Robert Ludwig was the one who mastered the vinyl copy, and he's known for mastering some of the greatest sounding albums of all time. This thing, I have a copy of it now, and I can indeed testify that it sounds amazing. And the music is great too. It's not just one of those, oh, it sounds so cool, but the music's terrible. The music is amazing. So Far Away is a really great way to open up the album. Of course, you probably know the hit Money for Nothing, which features Sting on it. Walk of Life, another really big hit. Your Latest Trick has really cool saxophone on it. Why Worry, some really great guitar playing from Mark Knopfler on that one. Right Across the River has this really eerie atmospheric vibe with the synthesizers, and I love it. The Man's Too Strong has some really great guitar. One World is a really underrated song, kind of a funky, upbeat number. And then the title track, Brothers in Arms, great way to close the album.
That's good, because we haven't really talked about Dire Straits. That's definitely a band that was popular in the 80s. I feel like they have another album that was pretty big.
Maybe I think, Making Movies. That's the other.
That's the one.
That's the other popular one.
Yeah, I think I've heard that. I haven't heard them, but I've heard they're popular.
Yeah. They had a popular album in the late 70s with Salt and a Swing on it, but...
Yeah, their debut,
Yeah, I listened to them. All right, Nick, your 8th album?
Awesome. This 8th album we were talking about before the stream, and I'm honored to say that this is my dad's favorite album by this particular artist, and it is Glass Houses by Billy Joel.
Okay.
That's a great album.
Yeah. It's definitely, I wouldn't consider it to be my top 3 favorite Billy Joel albums, but in terms of '80s Billy Joel albums, it is a great album. You may be right. That iconic glass shattering, like you just look at the album cover, you just drop the needle for the first time, and you hear that, and you just immediately think about the album cover, and that's just a great way to start off the album. Sometimes the fantasy is great. Don't
Whoa,
ask me.
whoa.
Don't ask me why is a great Paul McCartney-esque track. Still rock and roll to me, very overplayed, but I could still
Yeah.
like it. Like they killed it on the radio. All for Lena, really great deep cut. I don't want to be alone anymore, even though it's a great track. I would have rather have Sleeping with the Television on as the starter of the B side, but that's just me though. And have I don't want to be alone anymore as the
Oh
next
yeah,
track.
have that television white noise be the first thing you hear on the second side.
Like imagine those two songs were switched. Oh, it would have been so much better. Since it's Why You Were the One, it just sounds like a cruddy version. It just sounds like Billy Joel trying to do Michelle by the Beatles, but not doing as good. Close to the Borderline, I just straight up don't like. That song is crappy. Through the Long Night is very boring. I don't know. Like the first 7 songs are good. Just these last 3 songs always like every time I listen to the record, I always just take off the needle after Sleeping with the Television on.
All right, good. I remember you guys doing the Billy Joel ranking. That was pretty high on your list, I think. Glass Houses.
I can't remember where I put it.
I think I
Me
had it
neither.
at number 3. I had it at number 3 as far as I can remember.
Yeah. So I definitely need to listen to that. All right. Bryer, number 9. Number 9.
Number 9. It's not Beatles, by the way. But I'm almost done with my metal picks. I just have this one, and then I got one more after this. And it's one I like so much, I actually do own it on record. So the next one I'm going to go with is Screaming for Vengeance by Judas Priest.
All right.
So, yep, I always, my favorite Judas Priest album always changes. I think right now this is my favorite, but yeah, this is from 1982. Just a great album. Just a great album. Starts out with The Hellion and Electric Eye. Those two kind of blend into each other. They're just a great epic way to open the album. Just the guitar sound is just so big, immense. Just sets the tone really well. Then from then you have Riding on the Wind. Again, Rob Halford. Again, another one of my favorite singers. Just I love his vocal range he plays with. Bloodstone has a great drum sound. I love the drumming in that one. Take These Chains, another kind of commercial sounding song. Then you have Pain and Pleasure, the title track, which is probably the heaviest song on the album. But you have the radio hits, which was You've Got Another Thing Coming, which you still kind of hear sometimes on classic rock radio. Good catchy sounding number. Fever, another one, and then closes out with Devil's Child. But yeah, it's kind of, I can't remember if I said that with Iron Maiden, but for Judas Priest specifically, this is probably the best album to start with when it comes to Judas Priest, because again, it's still heavy, still has that heavy sound, but it's still not too heavy that'll scare people off, but it still has those commercial, very catchy songs that you can still kind of play in your head every once in a while. But yeah, it's gonna be my next choice.
Wow, yeah, you're definitely hitting the heavy metal there. you probably won't be surprised to know it wasn't on my list. So
what? No, just
It was on my list.
it was.
No, not really.
I don't think it was on anybody's list. That's why we got Bryer. Put that in the list. Hit our heavy metal crowd.
Bryer out here breaking the law. That's the only thing I know remotely from Judas Priest is just that line from that song.
I was considering that one too, but I think Scream Revenge a bit more, has more to it.
All right, for my next pick, it might be on someone else's list, but no one's mentioned it, so I'm gonna grab it, and that is "No Jacket Required" by Phil Collins.
Yeah.
which I know Brier's a big fan, so I don't know if he's going to talk about it, but
I had a feeling someone else was going to talk about it.
since
So.
he hasn't, I'm going to take it.
I have the record and the CD as well.
Okay.
Not with me. But.
It's probably my favorite solo album from Phil Collins. He also has Face Value.
Yeah, Face Value.
Yeah, which is another big one for him, I think. And I listened to both of them recently, and I kind of found myself liking this more. No Jack Required. I think I got Nick. Got Nick twice? Okay. Okay. I had a guess, and I was like, "Who's?" I only have 3 people, and it said Nick. I'm like, "Do I not have Nick on here?" Okay. I don't know if he froze or what.
Am I good now?
Yes.
Okay, now we can see it.
That was weird.
Yeah, that was weird. I got a request for Nick, and I'm like, Nick, isn't he on here already?
Sorry about that.
That's all right. But yeah, like I said, I already talked about Visible Touch. I love Phil Collins' voice. That's one of my favorite voices. But yeah, this album, it's a really good pop album. You got Susudio starting it off. Hit song, of course, listened to many times. My favorite song is One More Night. Really great, more ballad song, more slower style, which I love. Like I said, absolutely love his slower stuff. And then Take Me Home is the other really big one on here towards the end of the album that I really enjoyed. But yeah, overall, big fan of Phil Collins, so I had to put this on here.
Yeah, my dad owns that.
Fun fact: Sting and Peter Gabriel actually appear as guest vocalists on some of the songs.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
On
Take Me Home.
Take Me Home, and what's the other?
And I know Sting was on Long, Long Way to Go.
Yeah, that's the one.
Okay. All right, now we're to Garrett.
Well, if we're going to talk about Phil Collins' solo career, let's also talk about Peter Gabriel's solo career. Yeah. That one right there. So,
yeah,
I love this album. Maybe I actually think I kind of like it more than anything that Genesis or Phil Collins ever released, honestly.
Yeah.
Because this album is just amazing. It starts out with Red Rain, which is a really great song. And Peter Gabriel specifically asked for Stuart Copeland from the Police to come play on the record. But he didn't want him to play the full drum kit. He has another drummer. Stuart Copeland only plays the hi-hat. Because he wanted Stuart's precision on the hi-hat for that. If you listen to the intro, it has a very intricate hi-hat intro. And so, sorry. Stuart Copeland is only playing the hi-hat cymbal on this song, but he just does it so well. And then, you've probably heard Sledgehammer. It was a very big song on MTV back in the day. Really cool music video, really funky, kind of old school funk meets 80s kind of sound. Really catchy. Don't Give Up, which is his duet with Kate Bush. It's really great. That voice again is kind of a weird song, but it's kind of cool weird. I like that one. My favorite song on the album is In Your Eyes. That song's amazing. Kind of has a world feel to it. It's just amazing. Great 80s love song. Mercy Street is a very vibey song, kind of dark and mysterious. Big Time was another really big hit on this album. Kind of about just being larger than life. My least favorite song is the last song, We Do What We're Told. It's just kind of an experimental song that's just like... The song is only... it's 3 minutes and 18 seconds. That's longer than I thought it was. It's pretty much just an instrumental, but then at the end they just say we do what we're told a bunch. I looked up what it was about, and it was about like this guy who like tried to see how people could follow commands that like would like give people electric shocks, and if they would follow a command to give someone an electric shock that would be fatal even though it wouldn't really, if that makes any sense. It's weird, just
Yeah.
like the song. It's a weird way to end the album. But then Peter Gabriel is a very interesting individual, and has to put like something artsy on all the records. So that's why that's there. I like when it comes to the artsy songs. I like Mercy Street and That Voice Again a lot better. But other than We Do What We're Told, the album is amazing.
Nice.
Great one.
All right. You on Nick?
How many songs do we have left?
This is the ninth album that I'm doing. You mind if I read out the rest of my list, because I'm pretty sure the ones that I'm gonna pick aren't gonna be on any of your lists, and I have to be up in like 4.5 hours. So
Okay.
okay, cool. My number 9 spot though, like I was just mentioning it 2 albums ago, that this band is still relevant after 3, like this is their 3rd decade, and they're still making amazing music. That is not other than the Rolling Stones, and that is Tattoo You. Yes, Tattoo You. Yeah, Brier's gonna put up the CD right now.
Stop me up. Stop me
Taxi-
up and
Taxi?
never stop.
Tattoo You.
Tattoo You.
I got you.
The album opens up on a song that I've heard way too many times, but it's still a great opener. Hang Fire, which was recorded for the Emotional Rescue album, which I know Garrett's not too crazy about that album. And
That song is better than anything that actually appeared on that album.
crazy to think that song was recorded for that album, but was never released for it. Kind of like how freaking Four Sticks is on Led Zeppelin 4 and not Night Flight and Down by the Seaside. But yeah, Slave, which is a good song. Little TNA is rocking. Black Limousine, I love. Neighbors is great. Worried About You, I love. Tops is amazing. Heaven, No Use in Crying, Waiting on a Friend. Side 2 is my favorite side of the record. Great side. My number 10 album would be The Nylon Curtain by Billy Joel. I know Garrett wasn't too crazy about it. It's
no.
Here's the reason why I say it's essential though. I love the first 5 tracks on the album. Allentown, Laura, Pressure, Goodnight Saigon, and She's Right on Time. Those 5 songs are amazing. I'm gonna show you
three of those songs are good. Allentown and Pressure and Goodnight Saigon are the only songs I like on that album.
I love Laura and She's Right on Time. I actually really like those songs.
My problem with this album is like most of the songs, other than the 3 I mentioned, sound like wannabe Beatles songs.
Yeah, I can see that. Well, the last 4 songs I'm not crazy about though. A Room of Our Own just sounds like a standard rock and roll.
Scandinavian Skies, or whatever that song is, sounds like the unholy love child of I Am the Walrus and Strawberry Fields Forever, but it was inbred so many times that it just mutated into something horrible.
Yeah, I'm not like. Where's the Orchestra was cool though. Like it brought back Allentown at the end, like the orchestra. But rather than that, it's like those 5 songs to me make it essential enough for a listen, at least one listen. My number 11 spot is gonna be The Game by Queen. I mean not The Game, The Works. Bleh.
The Works.
Sorry.
Oh man,
if you're
I was
writing
gonna
that,
cross that one off, but
yeah,
never mind.
Yeah, The Works. I mean, it starts off with Radio Gaga. Like that song alone to me makes it worth the listen. But has Tear It Up, which is great. It's a Hard Life, which very similar to The Game. Man on the Prowl, which is very similar to Crazy Little Thing Called Love. But I think those 2 songs are both better than those 2 songs. Machines Are Back to Humans. I hated that song at first, but it's grown on me significantly. I don't know if you like it or not, Bryer.
I think it's the weakest song on the album.
I still think it's the weakest song, but it has grown on me. I want to Break Free, which I actually prefer the shorter version that's on the album. Weird that the single version will be the longer version, but weird. Keep Passing the Open Window, which is what I would consider to be the definitive anti-suicide song. Unlike
don't try suicide.
Yeah, that song is horrendous, but this song is actually really great. And then it ends off all my two favorite Queen songs, "Hammer to Fall" and "Is This the World We Created."
Oh
This is
yeah.
definitely my favorite Queen album of all time. Only short behind, the only two albums that are extremely close, shortly behind it are the two '70s albums, "Sheer Heart Attack" and "A Day at the Races."
Yeah, yeah.
Great albums. Okay, and yeah, my number 12 spot is gonna go to "Cloud Nine" by George Harrison.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great solo Beatle album. I would say it's the last like truly amazing thing that a Beatle would put out. I mean, Paul McCartney made some really good studio albums, like Flaming Pads are really good, but like this is like to me like this is like the last like really cutting edge thing that the Beatles would make by any Beatle member. Cloud Nine is amazing. That's What It Takes is great. Fish on the Sand, Just for Today. This is Love. When We Was Fab, Devil Radio, Somewhere, Someplace Else, Wreck of the Hesperus, Breath Away from Heaven, and the big hit off of it, Got My Mind Set on You. If you want to hear my more in depth thoughts on this album, definitely check out my video on it. I'm a little bit more detailed on those songs, though. But yeah, that's my 12 albums.
All right.
Hope
Great
see you
list.
guys next time.
Yeah.
I'll see Garrett for top albums of 1970. Looking forward to that. And I'll see you guys next time. So long.
All right.
See ya.
See
All right.
Good night.
Good night.
All right.
All right.
And then there were three.
Then there were three. All right,
All
good.
right.
Brian, number what, 10?
All right, back to. Okay, this is my final metal pick, and then the rest is everything else. All right, so my final metal pick, I'll go for the '80s, is gonna be. And this one is pretty good. This one's probably one of my favorite metal albums ever. And that's gonna be Queensryche with their album Operation Mindcrime. So this is a concept album. It's a rock opera. It's a heavy metal rock opera. And to me, this is definitely up there as one of the great rock operas out there, in my opinion. Just it's a bit more like the story. Like I won't go through the songs individually because there's actually a lot of songs on this. But ideally, the story is about this guy named Nicky who's kind of down on his luck. He's kind of getting fed up with society and the government stuff like that. So he winds up being recruited by this individual who's starting this whole revolution against the government. And so in order to convince him to do it, the head guy brainwashes him into assassinating different people in power. And at first he's like digging it because like Nicky's digging this because he's like, oh my god, I have so much power, like I can do anything now. But then as the album continues on, it starts to weigh on him, like this is probably not a good idea he's doing. He's starting to regret everything. He falls in love with somebody, but the people that the organization he's working for is opposed to it, so he's trying to sabotage it. I'm not going to spoil it, but it's just the musicianship on here is spectacular. The guitar playing, even the bass playing, has some standout moments, which is pretty rare for a metal band. The bass is pretty high up in the mix, which I always dig. The vocals by Jeff Tate, I mean, one of the great metal singers of all time. He's definitely way up there. Definitely embodies the character. He's the main character, and you feel the emotion he's trying to convey. But yeah, this is fantastic. One of my favorite metal albums ever.
The Queensryche?
Queensryche.
I never heard of that.
Yeah. They were pretty big. They weren't like a single band or anything. They were definitely more of an album band. But my mom was a big fan of them, so that's why I knew about them.
You always surprise me. All right, so we definitely got our heavy metal fill for sure on this, which is good because heavy metal was a big deal in the '80s. So,
oh yeah.
Like I said, I'm gonna hit the pop albums, but all right, for my next album, I'm gonna hit on an artist we haven't talked about, one of my favorite female singers actually is Carly Simon, which had a lot of big hits in the '70s. But she has an album here in the '80s I really enjoy, and that is called "Coming Around Again," which came out in 1987. Like I said, Carly Simon, great singer. Obviously, you know her hits from "You're So Vain" and um, uh, "Anticipation," all these great stuff. But now she's kind of late '80s, and so she's a little bit older, but she's still putting out really great work here, and really great pops album. She's a great piano player, singer, songwriter. The title song, "Coming Around Again," great song, real catchy pop song. "Do the Walls Come Down," another really great one. "Two Hot Girls on a Summer Night," really great. We're just really catchy pop songs. And then the last one I'm gonna talk about is "All I Want Is You." The whole album's, I think, quite good. It's a really easy listening. I mean, I really like these. Really like just it's kind of album you can almost just sit and sit in the enjoy the sun and drink a martini or something, and just enjoy this, as you like fall asleep or something. It's just a really nice, easygoing album, and yeah, I really enjoy it. It's one I actually heard when I was a kid because my mom loved this album, so she played it quite a bit when I was young. So I kind of have some nostalgia when I hear it. So I go, oh yeah, I remember this. There's a really good or good video of her playing these songs like out in somewhere like along the ocean, and she has like a small like audience, and she's like playing the piano, and the wind's like blowing her hair around. It's like a really cool like concert video. I'd recommend. Anyway, so yeah, that's "Coming Around Again" by Carly Simon for me, my number 10th
All
pick.
right. Interesting. Yeah, I haven't heard that one.
Okay, all right, good. I got one you didn't know. Yeah, you didn't pull the CD out, so I was like, okay.
Yeah, no, I don't have any Carly Simon.
Oh, okay. I recommend her. She's really good.
Yeah,
So
I
you
only
don't
know
have
I only know the one song, "You're So Vain." That's the only song I know of
you
her.
have no Carly Simon. I
Nope.
guess that makes Jason just want to shout. I mean, Jason's probably like going head over heels about that.
Shot and lit it all out, or what? Ah, tears for fears.
Yep,
Shout, lit it
Let
out.
it all out.
These are
Yeah.
the things I could do without Carly Simon. No.
All right.
um, from 1985, Songs from the Big Chair. It's between this and Brothers in Arms is my favorite album of '85. Both of these are brilliant albums. This one starts out with "Shout," which is a really great song. I love it. I love the guitar solo by Roland Orzabal, and I like the keyboards on it. I love the do 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 and the bass do 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 do. That's what I really like about this album is that it uses '80s production, but it doesn't use it in a way that makes it sound dated. It's still a very fresh sounding album even today if you listen to it. And then the next song, "The Working Hour," great saxophone intro. It's just a great song, really amazing, really great deep cut from the album. And then you got the big hit, "Everybody Wants to Rule the World."
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Great guitar riff, great lyrics, great melody, great all around song. I love the outro guitar solo on it. And then "Mother's Talk," which was another hit. I love the bass on that song. It's really cool. There's like a bass solo at the end. I like the synth, and I like the strings. It's like bow, bow. It's like they have these strings, but they put all this reverb on the strings, and they just like hit one note, and it just rings out because of the reverb they put on it. It sounds really cool. And then like the guitar that just plays the chords like bing. And they use a lot of cool studio tricks on that song. And then the B-side. The B-side is almost one continuous song that just keeps on going and going, kind of like the Beatles' Abbey Road medley or the Cars side 2. But it starts out with "I Believe," which has a lot of really great piano in it. And then you get to my favorite part on the album, the Broken Suite, which starts out with "Broken," which is a cool, mostly instrumental song, which introduces you to a theme that's going to be played throughout the next few songs. It goes do 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 do, but it's played very frantically there. And then it all cuts out, and then it's just like the synthesizer, and he sings like something like "Broken, we are broken," and then it plays a moo doo 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 doo, and then he sings. In my mind's eyes, one little boy angers one little man. Funny how time flies. And then, whenever he's singing "Time Flies," then the piano comes in and it plays that theme again, but slower, and we have "Head Over Heels," which is my favorite song on the album. Really amazing. I love the guitar on that. I love the piano on that. It's just a great song. And then again they repeat the "In My Mind's Eyes," but this time it's one little boy into one little man. Funny how time flies. And then it goes into the broken reprise, but it was them performing it live because there's some audience noises at the end. And then the last song, "Listen," that's my least favorite song on the album. It's really weird. I have no idea why they even put it on the album. It's just kind of noise to me. I always stop the album after the broken reprise. That's kind of where I feel like the album should have ended, even though it would be in a shorter album. Like other than it's a perfect album other than "Listen." So still a really great album though.
Yeah, I figured that was gonna come up at some point. You
Yeah.
guys talk about it. You guys talk about it so much. How much you
Yeah.
like it. So,
Right. Back
Bryer,
to me.
number
All
11?
right. So we're done with metal, but now I'm gonna go with more folk, a more folky album.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So even though folk was not really that big,
No,
there were some occasional people that came in who with acoustic guitar, and this person was definitely big when this album came out. This is her debut album, so it's gonna be Tracy Chapman.
yeah,
Yeah. So Tracy Chapman.
yeah,
Again, I think I've talked about it a couple times on my channel, but I've grown to
yeah,
appreciate this album way more than when I first heard it
yeah.
about a year ago. But yeah, it's basically just her on acoustic guitar. Occasionally, there's some other musicians as well, but yeah, I mean, it starts out with talking about a revolution, which of course that sets the tone of her lyrics because she's pretty much likes to write lyrics about poverty, racism, or everything that's going on in the world. Like she's basically a protest singer. But yeah, talking about revolution is a great song to start it off. They have probably her most well-known and her most beloved song, which is "Fast Car," which is
That's great.
that's a terrific
Yeah,
song. Just the
yeah.
lyrics to that one is just so great, and the chorus is just so memorable. So yeah, love that song. Yeah, you have "Across the Lines," which is really good as well. Behind the wall. That's kind of yeah, there's one song that's mostly just an a cappella song, which is okay, but it's all right. Um, Baby, I Want to Hold You is really good. Probably my second favorite song on here is Why, and that's a great, more upbeats. There's a lot more to it. There's some drums in there, much more fast paced, and it's just a great song. She's got her tickets. For My Lover is also really nice. For You, yeah, definitely had to shout her out as well.
Yeah, it's awesome. I remember in the '90s, Fast Car was on the radio all the time, so
Mm.
I just assumed it was a '90s album. So
Yeah,
that's
it came
interesting.
out. Yeah. Her album came out in '88.
'88, yeah, so late '80s. Okay, that's the only
Yeah,
song I heard is Fast Car, but
yeah. It actually got popular again recently because a country
yeah,
singer named
yeah,
Luke Combs just did a cover of it.
yeah, it's controversial because or
You
something.
know, yeah. Because obviously obviously Luke Combs is a white guy and he's singing.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
it's a
but,
black
but yeah, I've
girl.
heard the cover. It's okay. It's fine for what it is.
Yeah, yeah, it's been pretty big from what I heard.
Yeah.
Um, all right, for my 11th pick, I'm gonna pick a band I'm a fan of, and there's another just really nice pop band. I really love pop bands, and this is Huey Lewis and the News with Sports.
I was gonna pick that one, so
You were
I can take that off the list now. There
from
we go.
1983, the year I was born. It's my favorite Huey Lewis and News album, and I feel like they get a bad rap because I feel like every time I bring them up, people make fun of me. But I
Hey,
really,
if you hate Huey Lewis and the News, just remember that Huey Lewis and the News is Marty McFly's favorite band. So
you're right.
there's that.
But they were pretty big in the '80s. I mean,
Oh
their
yeah.
albums did very well. They're all over the place. They played on Back to the Future, was nominated Oscar nominated for uh, uh, now I forget it's called.
Back in Time,
Not Back in Time, but
Power of Love.
Power of Love.
Power of Love. Power of Love. Great song. They were nominated for it. So, I mean, yeah, they're Oscar nominated band. They had some huge hits with those, of course, and
Mm-hmm.
uh, and they sold a lot of records. And I really like Huey Lewis's voice. I think he has a really great, like, I don't know, I call him like this pop rock band. I don't know, they have a mixture of like pop and
Kind of a
rock.
soulful, little bit of a soulful voice as
Yeah,
well.
they have a really great. They have a lot of they usually have like saxophone. I love good
They're
saxophone.
kind of like a revival of the 1950s sound.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that. Yeah, because they have some instruments in there, some horns sometimes playing. Just some really nice, catchy music, and I just love really good, just nice, catchy music. And it's a lot of they're really fun. Like their music videos are really funny. They have a good sense of humor about them. But yeah, that's great. You got the Heart of Rock and Roll, great opener. Heart and Soul, great song. I Want a New Drug, another big hit that was
The
on the
single
radio.
edit butchers that song. The
Oh,
guitar
really?
solo is really cool, and they cut out the best part of it.
Uh, Walking on a Thin Line, I really enjoy. And then my favorite song is If This Is It.
That's my favorite song too on that
Mm-hmm.
album.
Really?
That's a great,
Yeah.
great song.
Oh, I love that song. Yeah. And so yeah, this album has like I said, 5 like pretty good hits on here. Yeah, it's to me, it's just if you like really catchy pop music, rock music, or whatever, man, this is a great one. It even has some good harmonies in there as well. The backing vocals are really great. And Huey Lewis is, I think, a really great vocalist. So that's my pick.
Nice.
I get 2 more, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So pick them good.
Well, in the 1980s, they have lots of synthesizers on here. And a lot of people were calling people who use synthesizers sellouts. But to quote this album, all this machinery making modern music can still be open hearted. Not so foolish hearted, it's really just a question of your honesty.
Probably pick that.
Permanent Waves by Rush,
Oh yeah.
1980. As a quote from The Spirit of Radio, which is the lead-off track to this album. Really cool guitar riff. I really like the guitar riff on that. This is one of my favorite Rush songs. It's just so cool. Really great way to kick off the 80s with Rush. I love that it quotes The Sound of Silence in the middle, but they change the words. This song is pretty much, it's pretty much saying like, radio needs to be about letting musicians play and not about making money. But then at the same time, they're also saying like, just because you play a synth doesn't make you a sellout. Like, if you're using the technology and stuff, you can still use it to make great music. It's just about like, are you just trying to make money or do you want to reach millions of people? And I like how Neil Peart says that the radio waves are like little railways that crackle with life that bring a gift that's almost free to people. Like, I really like the lyrics to this. And then I like how it's like a reggae song at the end with that Sound of Silence reference. Really great song. Free Will has an amazing guitar solo. Jacob's Ladder, the really cool song just about illustrating a rainstorm, basically. Entree Nous is a song that's about as close as Rush ever got to making a love song by this point, but yet it's a love song Rush style with a lot of fancy language in it. Different Strings, and then the epic album closer, Natural Science.
Yeah, great
Yeah.
one.
Another Rush album I've heard. It's kind of a big, popular album. So
It's a good one.
kind of surprised we haven't talked about it yet. So good. You gotta. I kind of knew Moving Pictures and Permanent Waves would probably be on there,
I'm glad we got Signals on there too.
and you got Signals on there as well,
Yeah,
which I'm not as familiar with. But
yeah. At least those 3 are like what most people say are the Rush's
Uh,
best '80s albums.
okay,
All right.
I'm gonna throw a curveball for my last pick.
Okay. All right.
all right, Bryer, your 12th pick.
All right. So for my 12th pick, so this is another artist that needs to be mentioned. Kind of surprised I didn't mention it sooner, but course, we gotta talk about Prince.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
the one I'm gonna bring up is, of course, Purple Rain.
yeah.
I mean, yeah, this. I mean, as of now, it's still my favorite Prince album. It's probably has a lot of his big hits on here. Let's Go Crazy, fantastic opening track. Has that whole monologue to start us off.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a great one to start it off. Take Me With You, another great, very good upbeats, very catchy song. The Beautiful Ones is really nice. Especially in that song where at the very end Prince is just shrieking basically at the very end, which is just, oh my god, like I always knew he had a very high range, but oh my god, he's really pushing it on that song. Then you have Computer Blue, pretty good. Darling Nikki, very sexual song and very scandalous, but that's Prince for you.
Prince, yeah.
Yeah. Then you have the other big hit, which is When Doves Cry, another
Yeah.
great song. Then you have I Would Die For You, which is one of my really underrated song. I don't hear people talk about that
I
song,
would
but
die for you.
I just
Baby,
love that.
if you want me to.
Yeah, I just love how it sounds. And it just goes right into Baby I'm a Star. And then of course the album finishes out with the title track, which is just it deserves the reputation it gets. It's just one of Prince's, if not Prince's best song, especially the guitar playing in that song, especially when you actually see him play live, especially when you watch his halftime performance, really adds more weight to it. Um, so yeah, definitely had to bring up this album. I mean, the movie itself, Purple Rain, you can skip the movie, but the album, just
It's
get the
like
album.
Magical Mystery Tour.
Pretty much, it's
Listen to
just
the
there.
album,
Just
skip the movie.
exactly, it's just the movie's just to promote the album.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that's basically like the soundtrack to the movie.
I always forget. I can't
I don't
remember
know.
if it's the movie. I think the album was first and then the
Oh,
movie.
okay. In the movie, I remember
Yeah.
Prince on that motorcycle. Like he said,
Oh yeah. I
that
mean,
was like a big thing.
yeah. There he is on the motorcycle right there. I even have a shirt with this.
Cool.
Yeah, that's good. You got Prince because I knew he was a big deal. I'm not a big Prince guy, but he definitely is a big deal in the '80s. So
Yeah, oh, yeah.
I got him because I had him on kind of my list, and I listened to Purple Rain. Actually, I listened to Purple Rain just last night because
Oh wow, okay.
I was like, I need to listen to this. I know, anyways, and it's he's such a strange artist to me, but
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
want to hear everything that you listened to prepare for this, Jason. No, because you probably stepped out of your comfort zone a little bit listening to some of these albums.
yeah, like Appetite for Destruction, Back in Black. I was like, I'll give these a listen, but I wasn't a fan, but I knew they were big, so I was like, I
Yeah.
better listen to it, kind of thing.
Mhm.
But I know every time I look up like great albums of the '80s, Prince is all over the place. Purple Rain is probably his biggest one, but I want to say
1999.
1999, yeah.
and I think there's maybe a third one that I keep seeing on there, but
Sign of the Times, is that?
Yeah.
That probably is it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have no idea what song is on that album, but I've heard of
no.
it.
I haven't heard it either. I just know it.
I just know those are always listed as like the great albums of the '80s, whatever. So, yeah, Purple Rain I thought was probably the biggest one out of the three, but yeah.
Purple Rain,
All right,
purple.
my 12th pick. I'm gonna go with "Double Fantasy" by John Lennon and Yoko Ono, which came out in 1980. Of course, I'm a big Beatles fan, big fan of John Solo's. Some of his solo work is great. This is definitely one of his biggest albums, and it's tragic because he died basically while making this album, or maybe he was kind of, or I don't know if he was finished with it because I think he was going back and forth to the
He
music studio.
was. What's really messed up is that John Lennon autographed a copy of this very album to the
Yeah.
guy who would kill him later that day.
Yeah.
That's
And
messed
it
up.
was
And they
photographs.
yeah, they took a picture of it's messed up.
Yeah, it's such a one of the biggest tragedies in music history, obviously.
And apparently it's just because the
Um,
guy's like, I just want to kill someone famous and see if it makes me feel bad.
Yeah, he had some problems.
Oh yeah.
I think he's not. I don't know if he's still in jail.
I
Yep.
think so.
Yep.
I think he keeps trying to get paroled, but I don't think he's gotten paroled.
No.
No.
Um, yeah, was it Marcus? Dave
Mark
Martin.
No,
Chapman.
no, don't say his name. That's what he wants. He wanted to be known as the guy who killed John Lennon. So
Yeah.
forget his name, and
Um,
you won't grant his wish.
yeah. Yeah. So it's such a tragic kind of story of like, well, I think John was actually kind of almost he wasn't making as much music at this time period. He was spending more time at home taking care of Sean, uh, him and Yoko's son that they had together.
Mhm.
And it was interesting. There's this period where, like, I feel like in the '70s, he was making these big albums and he was doing really great. And then he kind of fell off a little bit. And then he kind of got, from what I understand, like to me, because Paul McCartney was like making these great albums and he kind of got inspired to come back into music by Paul, I think, listen to his music and going, oh, I want to get
McCartney
back
too.
writing music. And and so he writes this with Yoko. It's John and Yoko kind of do this together basically.
I would rather
And
have the single fantasy version.
oh
Like take the best songs from like take the John songs from this
oh
and from Milk and Honey, and then you've got
100%.
Single Fantasy by John Lennon.
Yoko kind of ruins the album. That's why I was hesitant to put it on here. But I love John's stuff on here so much that I was like, I'm gonna put Double Fantasy on this list. Um, yeah, because so he comes up with this last album. I mean, it's his last album, and he dies. The album's huge, does blockbuster numbers, of course. It wins the Grammy Album of the Year. In fact, I think I can't remember when. If it was right after, somewhere in there. So I mean, yeah, huge. I mean, one of his biggest albums, and unfortunately, he passed away before you get to enjoy any of that. Yeah, it's kind of an interesting album because it's half John and half Yoko gets her own stuff, and Yoko's just horrible. I mean, she's I just don't like Yoko at all. She's just the worst. Anyways, as far as music goes, I mean, it's just
It's not just
kiss,
music.
kiss, kiss. Oh my gosh, it's like I can't stand her part. But John has some really great stuff here. Some of my favorite stuff, in fact. Just like Starting Over, really great song. Start the album, I believe. Beautiful Boy, one of my favorite John songs of all time. Absolutely beautiful song. Beautifully written to his son, Sean. Just love that song. Watching the Wheels, an absolute fantastic song. And then Woman. Woman is a really great song on here. And John still has it to the very end of his life, still making some really great music. And this was a huge album, so I'm gonna put it on the list. Double Fantasy.
So I was going to choose The Game by Queen from
I
the
thought
last
so.
album, but instead I'm going to come out of left field completely and do an album that's probably going to anger a lot of people, but it needs to be on here because I think it's an essential album of the 1980s.
Okay.
Even though people are going to say that, like, why did you put that on there? This band was so much better in the 70s. This is a corporate sellout album. Guess what? It's an amazing album, and it's an essential album of the 70s. I mean, the 80s. I'm going with 1984's Chicago 17.
Chicago 17. Okay.
Okay. I don't have that one.
Yeah. Okay.
This is the best album that Chicago put out in the 80s. After having a really bad streak after guitarist Terry Kath's death with
Yeah.
a bunch of horrible albums, Chicago Hot Streets, which has some good songs but a lot of bad songs, Chicago 13, which has the amazing Street Player, but the rest is just garbage, and then Chicago 14, which I don't even know why I own a copy of. It's absolutely terrible. They had a big comeback with Chicago 16 because they ended up going in a completely different direction, which is what they needed to do because like they don't have Terry Kath, so why did they even try to go on in the same musical direction? But the good news is that they would not drop the horn section. So many labels said, "We'll sign you on if you drop the horn section." But producer David Foster was the one who decided that he would keep the band with the horn section, and so even though the horn section is kind of taking a little bit more of a back seat, it's still there. So they came with Chicago 16, great album that had Hard to Say I'm Sorry on it. And how are you going to follow up that great album? We followed up with an even better album, Chicago 17. Now, Peter Cetera, the bass player, is kind of taking the front role here, but he was like completely the lead singer on 16, other than they got a new guitar player as well, Bill Champlin, and he sang a few songs. Robert Lamb, the keyboard player who was kind of the main vocalist in the 70s, is back on this album. He didn't sing anything on 16 because he was kind of going through a rough time, but he's back. He writes and sings some of the songs on this album. Stay the Night is the lead-off track. We Can Stop the Hurting, which is the Robert Lamb song on the album, which is a really great song with a cool synthesizer part. You've probably heard of Hard Habit to Break. That was the big hit on this song, or on this album. It's really great. It's a duet with Peter Cetera and Bill Champlin. Only You is great. I Remember the Feeling. People are just going to say that's a sappy Peter Cetera ballad, but it's a really great one. Along Comes a Woman, really great song. You're the Inspiration, another sappy ballad, but it's a great sappy ballad.
Okay. Yeah.
Please Hold On is a really funky song that I think may have been co-written by Stevie Wonder, if I'm not mistaken. Someone check me on that, but I think it. I might be thinking of a different song. I think I'm thinking of the Beach Boys 1985 album that had a song that was co-written by Stevie Wonder.
Maybe.
It closes off with the really great Once in a Lifetime, so a lot of people probably hate that album, but as far as it giving Chicago new life, it's great, and if you're a sucker for great ballads, then please listen to that album, because it is really great, and it's very essential for the 80s and for pop music in general.
Sounds like my kind of album then.
Yeah, Jason, you should listen to Chicago 16 and 17.
Okay.
You'd love both of those albums.
I remember I really liked Chicago Transit Authority.
Other than Freeform Guitar. I saw Freeform Guitar and I'm like, oh, this is going to be Terry Kath doing Eruption before it was a thing. And then I turned it on and I'm like, dude, you're so much better than this. I've heard how you can shred the guitar and you're just sitting here making car noises with your guitar. Anyway.
Yeah, I've always wanted to go. I love Chicago. I want to go through their stuff, but they have so many albums that I got.
They have so much stuff. Some of it is absolutely brilliant. Some of it is terrible.
So I didn't get that far in before I kind of quit. So
I will tell you the albums that I think you'd really like. So as far as the early stuff, Chicago Transit Authority and Chicago 2.
Okay.
And then Chicago 5. And then listen to a few songs from Chicago 6. Listen to Just You and Me and Feeling Stronger Every Day. Skip the rest of the album. 7 is a double album that has a lot of jazz instrumental stuff. So just skip straight to the song Lifesaver and then listen to the rest of the album, because that's whenever they start actually getting to the singing. The rest of it is just instrumental before, but then once you hit Lifesaver onward, you'd really like that album. And then skip Chicago 8 other than Old Days and Harry Truman. Oh, but there's some other really good ones on there too, like Oh Thank You Great Spirit, which is a tribute to Jimi Hendrix. That one's great. And what else is on there? Oh yeah, Hideaway. That's another really good song on 8. 9 is a greatest hits, so you don't need to bother with that. Unless you want to just hear the greatest hits. Listen to 10. That's a really great album. It's got If You Leave Me Now on it. And then listen to 11. That one's also really good. Skip Hot Streets 13 and 14. Listen to 16 and 17, and there you have it.
Okay.
And then if you're interested in what happens after Peter Cetera, just listen to Look Away, because that's one of the only really good songs they have after he leaves.
Yeah, Chicago's such an interesting band because they had this kind of bluesy rock style with Terry Kath with the guitar, and they, of course, had 3 great singers with the keyboardist, bass player, and guitar player, or whatever, and all that. And then the 80s, they kind of went to this more, I believe, if I'm right, more of ballad type. Because Terry Kath passed away, and then they did these ballads. But I love the Chicago ballads; they're great.
Oh, yeah.
If you say Chicago, my mind automatically goes to the '70s stuff with Terry Kath.
Right.
But I still really like 16 and 17. They're really great albums.
Yeah, You're My Inspiration. That's one of my favorite songs.
Oh yeah,
that's so good.
Yeah, that's probably the first Chicago song I heard.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
The first one I heard was, I think it was Hard to Say I'm Sorry. I heard that on the radio, and then it played the outro with the horns, and I was like, That's a cool song. Let me go check that out. And
Oh,
so
yeah,
that's the first Chicago song I had heard.
my sister's going. Good night, Abby.
Good night. Hmm.
Surprised you're still around. Getting kind of late night here, but we're almost done because we got only two more picks left. One from Bryer and one from me to finish out the 80s. So, Bryer, you have a
All
good one.
right. My final one.
Coda by Led Zeppelin.
No. But yeah, this I have to mention this particular person because I haven't mentioned her yet. So there we go. Garrett's giving the appropriate drum roll. But yeah, it's gotta be Kate Bush, Hounds
Yeah,
of
how have
Love.
you not talked about her yet?
He wants to save his favorite for last.
You saved for last?
Exactly.
Okay.
Gotta save my favorite for
I was like, did
last.
she not make an 80s album? I was starting to think.
My favorite was the first one.
Yeah. But yeah, I had to mention her. I mean, this is my favorite album of 1985 and probably my favorite 80s album in general, and
Yeah.
still my favorite Kate Bush album. I've talked about this to death on my channel, so I'm not going to go too in depth, but to me, this is a perfect album. I mean, I just love every song on here. Even the songs that people would kind of say aren't the strongest songs, I still really enjoy it. I mean, side one has a lot of the standalone songs. This has all the singles, like of course, Running Up That Hill, Hounds of Love, Big Sky, Mother Stands for Comfort, and Cloud Busting. But then you have side two, also known as the Ninth Wave, which is a conceptual piece about a woman just trying not to die from drowning after a shipwreck. But yeah, just a great movement. I just absolutely love it. I love her voice. I love her. I love her artistic, what she stands for artistically. So yeah, I had to shout this one out because again, I love it to death.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that's my last one.
Is it a self-titled album? What is it?
Hounds of
Hounds
Love.
of Love.
Hounds of Love. That's it. Yeah.
Yes. Here's the question. Has Bryer talked more about Hounds of Love, or have I talked more about moving pictures?
That's a good question.
Or what's the album? What's the album that Jason talks a lot about?
What do I talk about?
Crosby, Stills, and Nash.
Yeah. I swear Bryer was just talking about Running Up the Hill, just the other video I watched. I think.
I know.
Yeah.
I was on Adam's channel talking about our favorite 80s and 90s songs, and yeah, of course I had to bring up Kate Bush in that one too.
And you brought up
I brought up Running Up That Hill.
While we're on here, like, what do you think is the number one essential song of the 80s? Like, encapsulate the 80s in one song.
One song. Man, I guess I don't know.
I'll go with Take on Me.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good pick. Take on Me.
Yeah. Especially that it pretty much sums up the whole pop scene.
I mean, gosh. I mean, I think of what's it called? Phil Collins.
In the Air Tonight?
In the Air Tonight. I was gonna go to do. The big joke. In the Air Tonight is what I think about probably.
Yeah, that's another good one. It pretty much, I mean, that song basically started the 80s officially.
Yeah. I'm gonna go. I think I'm gonna pick "Everybody Wants to Rule the World."
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Even though probably "Every Breath You Take" by the Police is another one.
That's a big one.
But
for sure. All right, so
all right, Jason, you got the last one.
Last pick of the 80s. So luckily, I do have some on my list, so I have something to pick from. I was afraid everybody's gonna pick the ones I had, so I wouldn't have anything left. But I do got some here. Oh man. Well, I feel like I need to go with one of my favorite bands that we haven't talked enough about. I feel like I really want to put on here because I don't think we put enough albums from them from the 70s personally. So I'm gonna put the one album I really like from the '80s, and that is "The Game" by Queen, which I know
Yeah.
Garrett was thinking about.
I was that close to putting it on there, but I was like, you know
And
what?
I guess we did get the works from Queen, so we did get
Yeah.
that. But there's so many great albums to talk about from Queen, and for me, like, and I said this before, like, there's this great one of the greatest runs I've seen in my opinion of albums is Queen starting with uh, A Night at the Opera, and then you got Day at the Races, News of the World, Jazz,
Mhm.
and then The Game, right?
Yes.
That is a great 5 album, in my opinion. And you could say Shared Heart Attack is a decent album as well. But those are just, I don't know, to me are like 5 great albums. So this is kind of the last of, to me, and I know Bryer probably disagree because he loves all Queen's albums, but like this is the last like really great album for me from Queen, in my opinion. And it's got, and you get in the '80s, so it's got a different sound to it, I think, than some of their '70s stuff, a little bit. But I mean, how can you not talk about it without talking about another one, "Bites the Dust," which is their greatest selling single.
Yeah. Exactly.
Surprisingly enough, it was their biggest selling single, which, and they have so many great songs, obviously, and that's definitely one of them. And yeah, when I listened to this over again, I just absolutely loved this song, and it was in my top 10 favorite Queen songs when we did our top 10. Uh, just love how it starts with that bass line. That, of course,
Mhm.
one of the greatest bass lines of all time.
Of
Bum,
I
course.
finally
bum,
got this album, and
bum,
then
bum, bum, bum.
I played another one, Bites the Dust, when I got this album on
Oh, yeah?
my
Oh, yeah.
sound
Is
system.
that great?
Turned up the bass all the way, flipped the loud switch
The whole
on, and
apartment shake.
yeah, it was something else. The album sounds amazing. If you ever happen to pick up The Game on vinyl, it sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's definitely on my list. I need to get at some point. Um, but yeah, I love how it starts with that, and I don't know, something about Freddie Mercury's vocals, how he starts off soft. It's almost like he's whispering,
Mm.
and then all of a sudden he gets into the next one. The guitar comes in. All of a sudden he starts just belting it out like in the second verse, and it's like, oh my god, like he's just showing what he can do. And then now it's like,
Reportedly, when he was singing, he sung that part so many times his throat began to bleed.
oh really?
Yeah, he really pushed it.
Okay. I mean, his vocals are just amazing. Yeah, when he starts belting it out. Are you ready? Boom. Are you ready? Dun. Then another beat. Boom, boom, boom. Another one bites dust. And another one. I mean, just like the way he just puts a passion into that vocals and how he really belts it out there. It's an amazing song. Yeah. Definitely the big one on here. The other one, A Little Thing Called Love. I absolutely love that song as well. And it's so different from anything else, I feel like. It's like I don't know, like a '50s song or something. I don't know. I don't really.
It's his Elvis tribute. It's Freddie's Elvis tribute.
Yeah, it's like an Elvis song. It's weird, and
That's what the cover is. I think them dressed up.
Yeah,
in the
that's
music
where it's
video
come
for
from.
that.
They'll think this cover's lazy.
Yeah, and you've ever seen him play? Freddie Mercury's playing like the guitar on, which you never see him play guitar, but I've seen him play this live, and he's doing the acoustic guitar thing. And it's so cool watching him play.
That's the only time he does it.
He has a leather jacket, and it's like so cool. And yeah, it's so different, but yet I absolutely love the song. It's so cool.
Another fun fact. Sorry, my queen is coming out, but but for that song, he actually wrote that song in the bathtub.
Really?
Yep. He was just in a bathtub, and then he had the guitar near him, and then he was just playing around with it, like, oh, okay, I got it.
Yeah.
And then once he got out of the bathtub, then he calls Roger and John to go to the studio help him record. They told Brian last because Freddie wanted to see if they can get most of the song finished before Brian got there.
I heard they made Brian play a Fender Telecaster guitar because that's like a popular guitar in the '50s instead of his Red Special.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Especially in the video, you see him with a Telecaster, and on live, you see him with a Telecaster.
Buddy Holly played the Telecaster. I think that was real famous.
Probably because Freddie was like, I don't want Brian playing. Like, I got the guitar parts down. I want to play the guitar parts on this, and then we can have Brian just play the solo there.
Yeah.
Yes, but the only time I've ever seen Freddie Mercury play guitar. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Usually, of course, dancing around on the mic and stuff, or on piano, of course, is great.
Yeah.
as well. But anyways, yeah. Those are the two big ones on the album, but yeah, it's still a really solid album from the '80s, I think, and it definitely was on my list. I thought someone was going to pick it up, but it's a good one to end on. I think.
My favorite song on the album is actually "Need Your Loving Tonight."
Oh yeah,
I
that's a
like that.
really underrated song.
Yeah, that was kind of a minor hit from the album.
Yeah, that
And
was
then
John's song.
"Dragon Attack" is another great
Oh yeah,
song on that
Dragon
album.
Attack.
Do 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 do. And I love how like Another One Bites the Dust starts right after that, so it's like
Just two
it's
great
like
bass songs,
really great bass
back to
riffs back to back.
Yeah,
yeah.
it's that Dragon Attack is fun to play on bass, by the way. It's a
Yeah,
fun
Dragon
one.
Attack. Yeah,
Mhm.
great name for a song.
It's actually John's favorite song.
Okay.
Yeah, so it makes sense.
Save Me, that's another great
Oh yeah,
one.
pretty ballad.
Yeah. Same.
Basically everything other than Don't Try Suicide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so that's number 50 on the list. Do you have any honorable mentions you want to mention, Bryer?
All right. Well, there's quite a bit still over here. Let's see. Of course, Prince, 1999.
Okay, yeah, we mentioned that.
The Go-Go's, Beauty and the Beat.
Okay,
We got the beat.
we got the yeah. Sure.
Stevie Nicks, Belladonna.
Okay.
And of course, of course, Face Value, Phil Collins.
Yeah. I'm kind of surprised. I thought maybe you'd pick up one of those.
I knew Phil Collins was going to come up eventually, so I was like, okay, I'll leave that slide.
We got Invisible Touch in there.
Yeah.
And No Jacket Required.
Yeah, exactly. Ozzy Osbourne, Blizzard of Oz.
Yeah, heard that.
This is just a personal thing, but Joy Division, Closer.
Joy Division.
Anything else? We already brought up U2, but Here's War.
War.
Unforgettable Fire. I didn't bring that one out, but that one too. Let's see. Even though I tried to resist, but Rita Takeyoshi. And then here's the Van Halen, 1984.
Yeah, I'm so surprised that wasn't on the list.
I would have probably put it on the list if I'd have listened to the full album. I've only heard.
I didn't listen to it. I just figured Bryer would put it on there, so I just.
Again, the only Van Halen album I've heard is their first one.
Yeah,
because I had Too Hot Teacher on it. I think that's where I got that.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Yeah.
And I'll go 4 more. I'm not a fan of this album, but I know a lot of people love it. The Smiths, The Queen Is Dead.
Yeah.
What's the other one that's kind of like that? The Cure, Disintegration.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
that was actually one of them. That's actually one of them I was going to pull out. I actually do enjoy this one, though.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know them well enough, but yeah.
Yeah, Def Leppard, Hysteria, and I'll go one more. This one was originally in my list, but I thought, maybe that's a bit too heavy for the general public, but Master of Puppets by Metallica.
Yeah, I thought you might put a Metallica on there. I thought maybe.
Yeah, I wanted to. It was in the original list, but again, it was kind of like, it's maybe a bit too much. I know it was too much for me when I first heard it.
Yeah, that was a big one.
Yeah, but that's all I'll show.
All right. All right, Garrett, do you have any?
My honorable mention list is going to be a lot shorter. Let's
Sorry.
see. Oh no! I wanted you to have a longer one because I just don't have very many. Duke by Genesis. Zenyatta Mondada by The Police.
Yeah.
Abacab by Genesis. Paradise Theater by Styx.
Oh yeah, Styx.
Okay, Styx. Yeah, we didn't talk about them.
Self-titled Shapes album by Genesis.
Mm-hmm.
Too Low for Zero by Elton John.
Okay. Oh yeah.
Okay.
I guess Slippery When Wet by Bon Jovi. I've only listened to the first half, but it's got three huge songs on it.
Right, yeah. That album's pretty big.
Stormfront by Billy Joel. Gaucho by Steely Dan.
Oh, yeah.
Gaucho.
Southern Accents by Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. 4 by Huey Lewis and the News.
Mhm.
Whenever You Need Somebody by Rick Astley.
It's up there. It's
Then
up
Bryer
there.
likes that. Rick
And I guess that would be it for honorable mentions.
All right.
Yeah. The other album I came close to getting on there was Permanent Vacation by Aerosmith.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Because we're going through Aerosmith right now,
Mhm.
Bryer and
Yeah.
Anyways, and that's kind of their big comeback album, whatever.
Yeah.
It's not one of my favorite necessarily. I mean, it's up there. I guess it'd be up there right now.
Yeah.
But
It's okay.
I think it's a decent album.
Yeah.
I like Rocks better.
Yeah.
I like Draw the Line, but anyways.
Yeah. I like Draw the Line. I liked it way more on recent re-listens.
Yeah. But still, Purification is a pretty big album. Could have been on there. Came close to putting on there. I really liked Lionel Richie's debut album from 1982. I think it's a really good album. But I already got one Lionel Richie on there, so I didn't think I needed a second one. But actually, Pipes of Peace from Paul McCartney is like one of my favorite Paul McCartney albums. But I didn't put it on there only just because I know anytime someone puts a list together, that album's low on the list. Like, so I feel like I'm the only one that like loves that album. So I didn't put it on there because I thought, well, people might be mad if I put that on there.
That's exactly the reason why I picked Chicago 17.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, because I thought other people are going to say, "Oh, there's better Paul McCartney albums." I don't know. I really love that album, but there's other great Paul McCartney albums from the '70s, of course, and some in the '90s I really like that could be on the list. But and then Picture This from Huey Lewis and News I also had on here.
Yeah.
I like that album quite a bit, though I like Sports better. Yeah, that's that great song from there. Then I'm just going to touch on two albums that were big that we didn't have on here. One is Remain in Light by Talking Heads.
Yeah, I've heard that one.
I'm not a big fan.
I only know like the Watching the Days Go By.
Yeah, Once in a Lifetime.
That's the only thing I know by Talking Heads.
But I hear a lot of people in the music community are like, that's like one of their favorite albums. So I was like, I had it on here but I wasn't real confident about it. But I thought maybe it should be on there. But I didn't want to be the one to put it on there, so it didn't get on there. But I know some people will be like, that should be on there. And the other one is Against the Wind by Bob Seger. I didn't get around to listen to this one, but I like Bob Seger, so it might be a good album. I just didn't get around to listening to it yet. I just got a feeling there's Bob Seger fans that probably like, oh, this should be on there. But anyways, besides that, we hit most of the big ones I had on my list that I thought would probably be on the 80s list. So I thought we did a good job, to be honest, getting, for me, the big ones. We even got Madonna, which I didn't know we'd get Madonna. And I was like, oh, good, we got Madonna on here. She was huge. I just don't know Madonna well enough to. So it's good we got some of that stuff on there. Anyways, but yeah, so yeah, I don't know. You want me to read the list out, or do you want to just?
Yes.
Yeah.
That seems to be what we've been doing lately. You might have to correct me because I have a hard time writing these stuff down. If I don't know the album, if I don't know the album, I probably wrote it down wrong. So we'll see.
Okay.
All right. We start off with Back in Black by AC/DC. Number 2, Can't Slow Down by Lionel Richie. Number 3, Moving Pictures by Rush. 4, Signals by Rush. 5, Pyromania by Def Leppard. 6, Joshua's Tree by U2. 7, Escape by Journey. 8, An Innocent Man by Billy Joel. 9, Appetite for Destruction by Guns N' Roses. 10, Full Moon Fever by Tom Petty. Number 11, Ghost in the Machine by The Police. 12, Synchronicity by The Police. 13, 4 by Foreigner. 14, Graceland by Paul Simon. 15, Toto 4 by Toto. 16, It's Hard by The Who. 17, Number of the Beast by Iron Maiden. 18, Thriller by Michael Jackson. 19, Born in the USA by Bruce Springsteen. 20, Bad by Michael Jackson. 21, Like a Virgin by Madonna. 22, Whitney Houston by Whitney Houston. 23, Eye in the Sky by the Alan Parsons Project. 24, I believe it's GNR by Guns N' Roses.
GNR Lies.
GNR Lies. Okay, by
Yeah.
Guns N' Roses. 25, Whitney by Whitney Houston. 26, Invisible Touch by Genesis. 27, Eliminator by ZZ Top. 28, Face Dances by The Who. 29, White Snake by White Snake.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. 30, The Traveling Wilburys Volume 1 by The Traveling Wilburys. 31, Brothers in Arm by Dire Straits. 32, Glass Houses by Billy Joel. 33, Screaming for Vengeance by Judas Priest. 34, No Jacket Required by Phil Collins. Number 35, So by Peter Gabriel. Number 36, Tattoo You by the Rolling Stones. 37, Operation Mindcrime by Queensryche.
There you go. Yes.
What? Did I
Yeah,
get
you
that?
got. Yeah, no, that was. Yeah, you're right.
Okay. I get nervous when I get to Bryer, so I'm like, I know this. 38, Coming Around Again by Carly Simon. 39, Songs from the Big Chair by Tears for Fears. 40, The Nylon Curtain by Billy Joel. 41, Tracy Chapman by Tracy Chapman. Is that right?
Yes.
42, Sports by Huey Lewis and the News. 43, Permanent Waves by Rush. 44, The Works by Queen. 45, Purple Rain by Prince. 46, Double Fantasy by John and Yoko. 47, Chicago 17 by Chicago. 48, Cloud 9 by George Harrison. 49, Hounds of Love by Kate Bush. And 50, The Game by Queen.
All right.
Good list.
That's the
All right.
list.
That's a list for the 80s. That's the 50 albums that we think everybody should listen to or put in the record collection, I guess. There's definitely some I need to listen to because I haven't listened to it yet.
So I have a question. Now that we put together these essential albums, are you going to listen to all of them on the list?
Probably.
Yeah.
At least the ones I haven't heard
Yeah,
yet.
I plan on going back and listening to them.
Because I want to at least listen to the ones on the list from like the 70s. All the ones I missed.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I need to check out some stuff. Definitely, yeah. I know Nick, he did a lot of Who that I haven't listened to yet, and the Kinks I haven't listened to yet. So there's a lot of stuff there. I know Nick mentioned the 60s period that I have not gotten to. So, yeah, a lot of stuff for me to listen to be honest. Plus, I got Rush, and then I got heavy metal stuff, which I don't know what I'm going to do with that. But
You don't have to go there if you don't want to. That's fine.
But yeah, so I guess we'll end it there. Thanks a lot to Garrett, Bryer, and Nick. And we'll probably do one more of these. I want to do one more essential albums. We'll talk about that. Anyways, but yeah, thanks guys, and I hope y'all have a good night and good rest of the week.
We care.